Hey, welcome to the February 29th weekday version of the Budget Finance meeting. Tonight's a combined meeting with the Select Board so we can hear the first set of presentations on the Town Manager's budget. A couple of points of order. Tonight we'll be looking at the fire rescue, administration, library, assessing, GA, infrastructure, solid waste, insurance, revenues, and TIF accounts. Next Monday, we'll look at the balance of the accounts. With the exception of approving the minutes, it's a non-voting meeting. It's really just for us to gather inputs from the various boards. Any information that they cannot answer for us tonight they'll get to Don and he'll pass those out. The only other big exception is on the Code Enforcement Officer section. He's out sick tonight, but he will be available on Monday, so if we have any questions on that and they can't be answered, they'll either be sent to us or they'll get answered for us at the next meeting. So the first order of business is to accept the minutes from the April, we've got 3 sets of minutes that hadn't been approved prior. So the first will be the April 14th minutes from last year.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
I assume that any amendments or any changes are reflected, already in there. Second.
If they were already sent to you.
Okay.
All those in favor? Opposed? Next would be the September 14th minutes.
Make a motion that we accept those minutes of September 14th.
Second.
Those in favor? Opposed? And the last is the January 4th minutes.
Make a motion we accept January 4th, 2016.
Yeah, second that.
All those in favor?
Rolf, I'm going to abstain on that one just because I wasn't present. Thanks.
All those minutes are approved. Post those now. We did, I moved the fire rescue presentation to the front of the line because Chief Tupper has a class that he has to go and attend, so we get that done first so he can sneak out of here, but I think you're going to be staying through the end, so if there's any questions that come up throughout, then those can be answered as well. You want to start off, Bruce? Sure.
Hello, and thank you for adjusting for my schedule. I have 2 class seminars tonight, actually, the first one being at 8 and the next one at 9. So I really appreciate it because I would have to not only revisit the seminar online and then write an essay on each, which would take me hours instead of 1 hour each. So I appreciate it, and I'm sorry for the inconvenience that it's causing anyone else. As you can see in our budget this year, we don't have a lot of big changes. However, we did address the second half of the payroll adjustment plan that we had spoken of last year. I think that's one of the largest items, along with the equipment maintenance that you see in your packets. The second phase of that basically includes the 2% union negotiated contract wage increases and pay adjustments that we had started researching back in 2012 to try to align our payroll for all of our members with that of the surrounding towns. And this covers our call members, our officers, etc. And though we're headed to where we adjusted it for in that plan, we're really headed for a 2012-2013 equal playing field, if you will. So we're kind of at that phase. But I'd like to get us to that point, obviously. I think it makes sense. We made some adjustments accordingly, and as you see, there's some pluses, there's some minuses throughout, and one of the bigger adjustments is in fuel. We adjusted that accordingly. Of course, fuel costs are down a little bit, considerably, and our heating we adjusted because our LPG contract for our heat is markedly lower. And congrats, Nancy, for getting that down to that point. That's a feat and a half. Dispatch services was another change as you look at the overall, and I think you'll see that I've reduced some money from it after I added in the 3% that they're going to adjust us per our contract. The additional monies that were in there, as I've said in the past, have always gone for like infrastructure improvements or repairs, et cetera, modifications. And so I took that extra out above and beyond that 3% and put it into really where it belongs, which is under the radio repair account. Now that we have a new tower site, et cetera, and we're working through the bugs and et cetera in our system still to finally really tweak that thing, there'll be some monies needed for or allocated out of that radio repair line for that. And finally, basically the maintenance line item was another fairly large adjustment, and we did go over in that last year. Kathy, was there anything else? I mean, they were kind of all small little adjustments as we went through, but they did add up to a total increase over last year's budget of about $13,000 or 2% overall in our budget lines. The other adjustment, I guess, that would kind of stand out might be in fire prevention is a $300 and $1,000 line item. If you look at it percent-wise, that could jump out at somebody. Basically, and that's a simple, small thing, but it's really to accommodate our improved and increased outreach to the public. We're attending and making it a point of attending more and more events and getting in contact, getting fire prevention literature and items out to the people that we meet. So while you're standing there and trying to grab the attention of a child at an event, or sorry, an adult at an event, you give the child pencils and pens and hats and stuff, and that occupies them. Well, we grab the parents' attention and we're able to bend their ear for 10 to 15 minutes about carbon monoxide detectors and their importance, about smoke alarms and when they change their batteries, and about escape drills from the home, which are crucially important with the fire behavior that we're seeing today. Fires are burning at about a rate of 30% faster than ever before, and it's what we put in our homes that are causing this. So it's critical that we get that educational component out there. So that's a big adjustment there if you look at it percent-wise. And then the other one I see on this page here would be $400 adjustments in SCBA repairs. We replace all the batteries in every air pack 4 times a year. It's a quarterly thing, and there are a lot of batteries in each one of these units. The pass alarm device alone is like 8 batteries, in that, and then the low air alarms, etc. But we've got to change them out because if not, they go dead. Those are necessary items. We must maintain them and working with them. So it costs a lot of money to do that. And as these packs are getting older, we are incurring a little more in maintenance every year. So we'll have to adjust that as we go forward. We have other information as you need it, billing information, etc. But I think we kind of covered everything in the cover letter for this portion of the budget. I can tell you that as a matter of interest, there were 776 incidents in the calendar year. 128 of those were overlapping incidents. In other words, 2 at the exact same time, or they overlapped, so it took double the resources to handle it. And of those, about 50 of those were triple deep incidents. In other words, 3 times the incidents at the exact same time. With the exception of very few, we were able to handle all of those and handle them adequately with our department, and not have to call mutual aid specifically because it was a double or a triple incident. Where we run into our mutual aid is the bigger incidents, such as fires, etc. So, any questions?
You can go ahead. I have a question on the radio repair
Yes.
and replacement. Is that part of the going towards the tower that you were just talking about?
Repairs would, yes. It is not to build that tower. That is already in place.
Right.
But it's for the ongoing repair and maintenance of the infrastructure, including our radios, the handhelds to the pagers, to the broadcast center, yes. It does not include and is not included in that line for power or the facility itself. It's the radio equipment and the tower and antennas that are within.
Now, is that tower up and working?
Yes, it
at this
is. Yes, it is. And like I said, we are working out a few bugs that we've got, but that's just happens with RF, with radio frequency stuff. It happens.
And Chief, you mentioned that in this budget, you're wrapping up the second year of trying to get payroll, our payroll, to match the area departments.
Yes.
Why is it so little, less than $4,000 of an increase in payroll line item this year, where last year it was $20,000?
Correct. That's a good question, too. We looked at this budget a lot and studied it a great deal. 2,800 of that is, in fact, for the full-time wage adjustments for the full-time medics that are covered under the contract. We were, and for call volume reasons or lack of covering a few of the shifts, occasionally a few of the per diems that we weren't able to cover, we were behind a little bit in payroll. That fortunately helped us, and it also it makes it so now we're not asking for quite so much money. We had $15,000 left over in the payroll line last year. Fortunate for us, it covered some of the overruns and the cost overruns that we did have. This year, we've got a plan that will cover those per diems, we're hoping, a lot better. We're publicizing it a little earlier, and we'll get that out to our members so that they will come in, and we may have to reach out beyond our borders, if you will, to bring in some outside folks. So having said that, we're on target this year, and we thought that it looks pretty good that we can actually probably absorb that this year. And we're going to try it and hope that we've got it for sure. Does that clarify that?
It does.
Okay,
It's
good.
just you look at it numbers-wise, and one
Right.
year it was a $20,000 increase to improve, bump up that salary, but
Yep.
then only $4,000 this year. And
Correct.
are you where you need to be?
We think so. As long as things keep going down the same path, if you will, we have the same call volume, same call hours tied up in those calls, the payroll won't vary greatly. And that's really what we're kind of hanging our hat on there, is trying to control that and keep it in check. We know we heard some negatives, I guess, or concerns rather than negatives about it last year. Is it growing too quickly and all that? So we're really looking at that and trying to keep cost control measures in place and do everything we can while providing the service that we need and getting the services to our public. I mean, that is the ultimate bottom line.
Chief, I noticed that on fire prevention, as of January 31st, you're actually over, about $100 over where you
We
are expecting to be, or that you're budgeting for next year. And I'm just wondering, this is one of the few times you'll hear it, is that enough?
In all reality, probably it is not. If we bumped it $200, it probably would help. $300 would definitely help. But again, as we looked at the whole thing, we're trying to trim and make things happen and cover it adequately and effectively, and not increase too much. So we figured with 2%, coming in at 2% total increase, we're probably right on the edge of tax tolerance. So that's a big concern as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Under your vehicle maintenance,
Yes.
is there something that you guys are needing this year for that cost, or is that just the?
That's to help cover that overrun that we experienced last year. Unfortunately, as we have new equipment, we have vehicle issues that are covered under warranty, but the rest of our fleet is getting older. I showed you some of the pieces last year that were kind of my show and tell stuff. That's the stuff we're experiencing with all the older trucks. So rust, corrosion, incidents, things like that, wiring stuff that really costs a lot of money to maintain and repair. And yeah, like for example, we asked for money, and we had money last year for a capital plan for tank one, and here's an outside of that expense that came up. I had two of the side dump valves that failed, corroded and failed, and electronically failed. They're $6,900 to repair those. That wasn't something we planned on. So one
Is
repair.
this like a ballpark figure that
Yeah.
you've just come up with, saying this is probably what we're going to end up
Based
using?
upon past history, yes, and projected future, yes.
And last year you used 31,000?
Last year, we were, I don't have my figure right in front of me, but if you have it, yes.
But you basically used 31,000 in your maintenance.
If that's what you're showing, yeah.
Yeah, that's what it was budgeted.
That was what budgeted, we were over that.
38,000.
Okay, thank you, Kathy.
Okay.
I don't have that
that's what I
figure in
want.
front of me. So that's why the adjustment is to try to get more in line with where we're at. Oil changes and general maintenance are really fairly cheap to do. I mean, overall, it's the maintenance of that equipment that's specialized, and unfortunately, when you put the word fire or emergency in front of everything, the price gets elevated, and I have no control over that, so.
Yep. Thank you.
Yes.
Brian?
Chief, I'm Brian Richards. I'm the new guy, so I'll probably ask a lot of questions that people go,
Good.
how come he doesn't know that? So, just a general question to you.
Yes,
I think you just told me that now, if you get what you want on the salary side, you'll be up to 2012 versus some of the other towns. How much do you think it costs you whenever you lose some of your training employees because we're not paying a competitive wage? I mean, in terms of realistic, whether they have to be trained again, et cetera. So the question would be, would it be worth looking at the possibility of establishing some kind of policy where we maintained parity with the other towns at the same time they do it and not later? So here we have a trained force, you have a team, and then they lose and go to Fry Island or someplace else because they get $2 an hour more. So that's just a question for you, and maybe next time I'll ask in more detail and say, well, show us how much does it cost
Right.
you lose by not paying this competitive wage? And I'm going to be kind of like Brian. They rarely say, well, good, let's just go ahead and pay for this. But realistically, I'm looking at it from a cost point of how much does it cost you? To say nothing of morale and all when you lose a good person. So it's
Right.
just a thought. But from my side, I would say, why aren't we looking at maintaining a competitive wage so that we don't? I haven't talked to these guys. They'll probably beat me up afterwards. So,
yeah, Mr. Willard had a question, I don't know if you want
I have a
Chime in.
comment. The comment is that we have just recently completed a comprehensive pay study, which will be under review by the selectmen next Tuesday at 6 o'clock. And so that very question will likely be addressed by that study and be under some discussion.
okay, great. Thank you. Again, I'm the new person. I'm sure there's lots of things underway I don't know about. So, thank you.
Teresa?
My question is, and I know I kind of mentioned this, I think at another meeting too, is the mechanic issue. And I'm bringing up just half of this question to you now because the other half will be to Public Works, is what it would be. I guess we've got Nathan doing all of our in-house mechanic work that can be done as a mechanic now. I guess I'd like to see you guys on the same page as far as saying, like, and for instance, this truck, instead of it sending it out to East Coast, have it stay in-house because it's not a fire truck, it's not an ambulance, and seeing what we can do with working with in-house, and what does a mechanic cost, and will it benefit getting a mechanic?
Right. We did talk about this, and I don't want to speak for Nate, and I know he's here if you want to chime in, you can feel to jump in, but on the
I didn't see
mechanics
Nathan back
issue.
there, sorry.
Okay,
Sorry.
got him.
I didn't see him back there behind you.
So basically, we had some informal chats about this. We didn't really put a lot of numbers down on paper, but looking at a general overview of the stuff that we could farm out, if you will, versus the stuff that we could do in-house. A lot more of our stuff does go out because of the need for its pumps, its hydraulics, its ladder testing, its pump testing, and it's all affiliated with the fire side of that equipment. It's kind of the stuff that can't be done in-house. However, the oil change and the tire rotation and that stuff, the generalized maintenance can be done in-house. And I think when we chatted, and if I'm wrong, you can say, but I thought we said that we really didn't pan out money-wise at this point because I wouldn't give you enough work for it. Or
Right, we looked at it. The in-house cost to have a mechanic in the garage would be your salary plus your overhead costs of the garage. Unfortunately, we're right around about $3.80 some odd cents an hour to operate that garage for 40 hours a week for a year. So you've only got the added cost of mechanic. The problem comes into is keeping that guy busy, or finding the right guy to fit in there where you can use him in the garage 20-30% of his time, and the rest of the time with the highway department. We stopped at that point because I didn't want to add another salary to the public works budget this year until we could get a little bit more idea of what we had for work ahead of us on it. We've got plowing contracts that are coming up that are could put a more workload onto the public works department mechanically wise. Depends on how that goes. So there's a lot in play there that wasn't ready for the budget this year. But I think if you look at it as a whole, it would be worthwhile doing it just because of the cost. Just off the top, you're going to pay a decent mechanic probably in the $25 an hour, so you're still under $35 an hour to have a guy in the shop, and you're paying $80-90 an hour out to the retail shop, and you got markup on your parts, and
Right.
we gain waste oil from the service work to heat our garage. So there's a lot to it. There's a lot of benefit to it, I think.
I think I'm looking at it too as being more proactive instead of reactive. So what happens is a mechanic can put you guys on a rotating schedule to make sure they're doing the PM work and stuff like that. And what would a mechanic need, I guess, to be classified to be able to work on? Is there certain
our stuff?
certifications? Well, on your stuff, it should just be a diesel mechanic, is what I'm assuming.
Just a
just 'cause my
mechanic.
husband is.
You're going to send anything out on our new trucks, anything 06 and up on the heavy trucks. The programs that you have to buy to diagnose that truck is you're taking $10,000-12,000 just for that new truck we bought last year for that specific vehicle. So if you're going to do a problem with the motor or emission problems, you'd send that out anyway. Outside of that, a general mechanic, a guy that's got a Maine State inspection license, a guy that knows what he's doing, you really don't need anything special for that, or anything outside of that. The cost of the tools would be too much.
Okay.
Most of the public works departments around us are all changing to that kind of form. If the truck dies on the side of the road and it's an internal engine problem or an emission control problem or an electrical control problem on the motor, it gets towed to the dealer.
Okay. Thank you.
And to add into the other side of it, for specifics for fire apparatus and rescue apparatus, it's an emergency vehicle technician certification. There's 20 different certs to hold for specific things. But like I said, to change oil, you don't need to hold that cert. And that does take that component of our maintenance costs away. It isn't huge, but it's a piece of it. So in the benefits, like you said, you're taking out 8 gallons of oil out of a fire truck, like 8 gallons a couple times a year per truck for heating for the public works department. So.
Well, those certifications, though, that's something that a mechanic can get, though.
Yes, yeah, you can. Yeah.
Although there aren't that many of those certifications in the state of Maine, are there?
4 people that are certified in the state of Maine.
So
It can be done. I'm not saying it's easy.
Opportunity.
Exactly, yeah.
We could charge.
Yeah, see?
They come,
We can
them come
rent
to
him
us.
out. See?
Raymond Service. Raymond Fire Service. I don't know.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Thank you.
There.
Chief, staying with Brian's question.
Yes.
Before his question, I would ask, are we experiencing high turnover?
We experience the same turnover. Unfortunately, I would say it's always on average the same. A person's average stay with the fire rescue department as a call member is 8 years on average. You just get them trained to where they're very proficient, and they usually find some other interest in life. And I think if you look at pretty much everybody, that's kind of how our lives all run.
There's a burnout factor.
There is. And that cost is fairly substantial that you were asking about.
The training curve.
Yeah, definitely. We will invest. We did some rough training figures and figures about 10 grand to get somebody up and running and really proficient. So certifications and all. So when you start losing people like that, some of it's in kind, but it's value given, value added. So we have to consider that. We do, and that's another component of it, that piece of, do we lose to another department because they pay more? And absolutely, there's a neighboring department of ours where one of my members makes 18 and change an hour, and here in our town he gets 13 and change. As an officer here and as a firefighter there. There's a big difference in that.
Questions on fire and rescue?
Just run through the utility category real quick for us, Bruce.
Utilities, yes, let me answer your first, yeah. Of course, it covers our cable TV bill, which is our higher speed internet, which is dedicated bandwidth that we need to get our data to back up here at the service. So we had to upgrade that a few years ago, which was an added expense back then. Covers phones, lights, phones and lights, cable, TV, internet, and cellular devices, including the devices that are in our apparatus, which are the hotspots that run our laptop and tablet computers in our apparatus, so that we can link up with the MEMSers and NIFRS system and all our pre-planned data and hazmat stuff. It covers all of those components. We adjusted that a little bit this year. Actually, it wasn't a whole lot, but we're adding electrical costs at the radio tower, which is a new site for us, so, and an additional phone line at District 2 to cover the fire alarm system that's going in that building.
Thank you. Any questions? Does that cover, that's the fire, does that cover the rescue side as well, or is there?
Yes, it's all one lumped together.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Next would be administration.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for your review of the budget, everyone. Kind of a little bit out of sequence, but I was going to do a little kind of brief overview of where we're at with the budget. And so, first, do you like the InDesign format, being able to search the budget? You like that? That's our town clerk who put that in that format, so thank you, Sue. And
Doesn't work very well in hard copy.
I was just gonna say.
Not much I can do about that. But,
I'm like, it's no
but it
different from
is
mine.
How do you click it?
Package, so we're trying to do it with all
It's a
of
great
our
package.
documents.
Great package.
So, anyhow, the FY16-17 budget addresses just 14 goals by the Board of Selectmen for developing the budget. And if you'd like, I can run those down if you want me to, or I can give you the Reader's Digest version here. But everything's in your budget book. So there was a real conscientious effort, as there is every year, to exceed those goals. I think for the most part we did that, with a couple of exceptions. The budget presented in the draft form here is about an increase of $72,414, but that's on a gross basis. On a net basis, it's about a $33,243 reduction after all your revenues are factored in. So I guess I would say we're starting out in perhaps, hopefully, the semi-right direction. And both the expected municipal revenue collections and new valuation growth are up. I would say, and this is a really good news, that our CEO tells us that and don't take this to the bank because it's the CEO seat of the pants estimate, but we could be looking at $13–14 million in growth. That's not factored into this budget, but it is significant, and it falls on a good year last year. So, we didn't really suffer what you'd call a significant downturn throughout the downturn in terms of growth in valuation. I.e., we didn't go retrograde. We slowed, and maybe slowed to a crawl, arguably, but continued to grow throughout the recession times. And now we're getting back on track with more like we've seen in the more peak years. So that's, I think, really good news. So our revenues are budgeted at $105,657. That's including $75,000 from the undesignated fund balance or surplus, which the selectmen indicated, could be used if it was above the threshold that had been set. And so we do have a strong surplus, a strong fund balance, and the Board of Selectmen goal was 15% of the tax commitment, and so that's $1,807,451, the target goal. We're currently at $2,121,047. So that's some more good news. The proposed budget is $260,018 under the LD1 levy limit, the theoretical top level for the budget. Our current tax rate, and I think this is something that is significant as well, is $11.95 per thousand valuation. That is significantly lower than the average of the 10 comparable communities that we recently looked at, or our consultant did, as a part of the survey that he did for the draft compensation study. He found that an average mill rate of 16.13 per thousand valuation and a range of 13.55 to 21.56. Now, these are communities within our, I guess, our labor market, within our geographic proximity. So I guess the good news is we're doing, I think, something right with respect to the mill rate, and have the lowest one around. Did you want me to go back through those goals, or just jump right to administration, what the changes are?
You can just run through the goals, that's fine.
Let me do that, okay.
Kind of gives somewhat of an overview anyway.
Okay, so the first goal the selectmen set was consideration can be given to using undesignated fund balance in excess of $2 million for major non-recurring capital improvements. So the undesignated fund balance at the beginning of the current fiscal year was $2,127,892. At the end of January, the remaining balance was $2,121,047. The proposed use in the FY16-17 budget is $75,000 to pay part of the cost of replacing the roof on the public safety building. So we did do that. We looked at the fund balance and used some fund balance. Number 2 goal was increase appropriation for capital road work based upon the Road Improvement Committee report. We could do an increase in the road work and figure that into the budget, but we have to also be cognizant of the fact that there's only so much we can do with our existing resources. Of course, then you lay that against, well, there couldn't be a better time than right now to figure a strategy to do more asphalt because of the low cost of petroleum-derived bituminous pavement. So we that's something we could talk about and adjust, and certainly could look at, but Nathan tells me we're basically at our limit in what we can do. Number 3 goal is to develop a core services budget. As in prior years, the core services budget has been compiled with study by the department heads undertaken to ensure that municipal operations meet statutory requirements. What that means is we try to run it in a basic cable sort of way. Do we meet the intent of the law, the strictures, the requirements of Maine law? And I think we do. Do we do a lot of extra things that gild the lily? Maybe not so much, but we run, I think, a very competent and basic municipal government service. Number 4, continue to explore privatization and outsourcing of services for cost savings. In the current year, the selectmen are elected to outsource payroll and time and attendance. So you'll see that in the budget. That's an increase in contracted services under administration. We do think that these changes will lead to enhanced managerial control and employee management accountability. So we're just, I wouldn't say baby stepping, because we're kind of taking a major leap into it, and we're working our way through some of the issues. But it's so that's a change that we've undertaken this year and will propose in the coming year's budget. Goal 5 is explore working with neighboring towns and Cumberland County government to cut costs and improve services. And so on this one, I talked about there are no new initiatives in the proposed budget, but all of our existing relationships have been maintained. There are some active kind of back channel things going on. One that came to us, which you probably read about in the media, a citizen group in a neighboring town looking at us for services. I mean, it makes sense from a geographic standpoint, but there's a lot of a lot of politics between us and anything happening there. Now, the other one I really can't get into in great detail, but we also have another outreach effort from another neighboring community that's exploring with us the possibility of us taking over some of their services, and that may come back to you. We already do provide services to them. They're asking us to price additional services. So stay tuned. We may have a revenue source and a change to tell you about very soon from another town. So we're always looking for those opportunities, but right now in this budget, I can't say that I have a definitive, here's something brand new that's going to make a big difference, but possibly soon. Maintain current service levels in roadside solid waste and recycling. Our final year of the current contract with Pine Tree Waste at a negotiated consumer price index increase, because this is where the increase works to our favor at 0.6%, so they were really excited and happy to get that. The proposed budget maintains our current service levels. prior to the FY 17-18 budget, a new contract for services will be solicited, will be sought. Number 7 goal, bond for capital improvements versus capital reserve budgeting. There are no new bonds proposed at this time, but the bonding process has been used successfully for 2 bonds in recent years. And in this past fiscal year, we were successful in achieving and maintaining our AAA Standard & Poor's bond rating. We are the only town in our comparable group, and probably absent Falmouth, Cape Elizabeth, in this region, I think those are the 3. So we're in pretty good company, I guess, from that standing. Number 8 goal, consider department budgeting needs and anticipated needs going forward with the understanding that all budget areas may be subject to change. We have reviewed this thing top to bottom, inside out, department heads, town manager. We've scrutinized everything to try to find efficiencies and ways to improve our services. Number 9, new spending levels should be governed by the estimated increase in property tax revenues. This budget does not rely on estimated increases in property tax revenues. It is formulated based on the valuation at commitment. Significant increased valuation increases will be somewhat mitigated by increases in the homestead exemption. This budget, as proposed, as I said earlier, is $260,018 under the LD1 levy limit as calculated by our contract assessor. Number 10 goal, consider new and expiring debt service budget impacts as they relate to budget requests. New capacity in the amount of $14,247 was created by a reduction in the long-term bond payments and related interest, and has been taken into consideration in this budget. The next bonds to be retired will be the public safety bond, the Route 302 improvement bond, and the waterline bond. The final payments for these bonds will be made in FY 17-18. Goal number 11, continue to invest in capital improvements and infrastructure. The town's financial commitment to improved infrastructure continues through combined road reconstruction and in FY 16-17, the replacement of the roof on the public safety building. Now that's earlier than what we had hoped for, what we had, planned for even, but I think it tells you something about the idea of investing up front versus, maintenance down the road. I remember clearly the discussion 15 years ago, metal roof versus asphalt roof, and we had a budget to live with. We wanted to build a facility of a certain square footage. We did it, but, and of course we were orders of magnitude, hundreds of thousands of dollars below the next bid. And so you have to expect when you do that, and we did it on a design-build basis, saving tons of money for the town, built it cheaper than anybody else. But this is something that you have to expect. And even when you factor all the things we've done to this building over the time period, and we're nearing the end of the bonds, and all of the maintenance items like the roof, as I said, we're still orders of magnitude below the next bid. And so, in hindsight, was it a mistake? I don't think you can call it that. Does it create challenges and costs that you don't like to see? I think that is true. And so we're going to have to deal with the roof. The 12th goal is Public Works should consider capital equipment and staffing needs, a mechanic. So that's been covered already, and there has been a discussion about that. I think that will probably come back in a subsequent year. Number 13, consider a referendum for a new recreational facility. Let me tell you, we've had in-depth discussions, searches. We've looked at every possibility that we could possibly find, all kinds of different options, and I'm disappointed to tell you we haven't found anything suitable for the town to acquire or purchase or utilize in any way. So the search continues. If you know of any property, if you want to donate, 15 or 20 suitable acres, we're happy to talk to you. That didn't move forward. 14, and the final goal, a 5 to 10 year IT capital improvement plan should be prepared to keep digital systems and software current. With the proposed equipment and software upgrades currently put in place, updating will be an ongoing and incremental annual process using off-the-shelf products and components. Kevin Woodbury, our contract network administrator, tells me that he does not anticipate any large capital expenditures to be anticipated during the next 5 to 10 years. Now, I'll wait for him to come and make that presentation, because that's what he's telling us, because of the way he's designing it, the way he's building it, and I believe him. But I also know my experience and history tells me that we should ask some questions about that. So those are the 14 goals. You want to talk about changes in administration quickly?
Yep.
Okay, changes in administration quickly. We have a request of $3,000 increase for the Deputy Finance Director to take on Human Resource Officer duties. There is a request to increase the number of hours for the tax collector by 2, from 32 to 34. There's a change for the GA coordinator from 8 hours a week to 15 hours a week. We now have a part-time counter person that we're maintaining at 17.75 hours a week. There's a reduced request for administrative support from 9 to 6 hours. All selectmen stipends are included here, so that's subject to possible change. Supplies request is decreased due to prior software that was purchased in 15 and 16. There's an increase in contracts for the postal machine. As I say, we outsourced payroll and time and attendance to a private vendor. Postal rates have increased. There's a $100 increase in requests for publications. Small increase in advertising, $200. Increase for the Registry of Deeds, $700. Decrease in requests for printing, $400 minus. Decrease in the request for elections, $23.10. There is a CPI increase of 0.6% across the board in the budget for wage adjustments. Now that is just a placeholder. There will be, as I said, a comprehensive discussion with the consultant, the Board of Selectmen, at a workshop next Tuesday, 6 o'clock, to talk about where we might be going. So I would guess that's all subject to some adjustment and change. And so there are no locked-in or, I guess, approved increases in the budget for any kind of annual adjustment yet. That's the Reader's Digest version, sort of.
Sort of. Questions? Marshall?
I'll throw one out. It appears that we're settling back into 13-14 legal fee budget area, $30,000. But we spent $26,000 this year already. We've got 10 to go. Do we have a control on that, or are we still looking at some issues from planning?
Control on legal. Legal is an unforeseen thing, oftentimes, and I feel like we do. I mean, we have some land use issues that have been difficult, and so I can't. Is the question, can we reduce the number with the hope that we're going to see?
No, the question is, are we safe at 30,000? That's the question.
I think we'll be okay at that level, but I can't. And I think we may be getting to nearing the end of some of our problems. I hope.
Last year it was 36, the year before was 36, now we're going down to 30. It's just, the question is, are we?
Oh, okay, going too far.
Going down,
Okay.
going down.
I don't think so. I think we look at history and we look at where we're at, and yeah.
So where are we on ordinance reviews and things like that? Are we near the end of the big hits on that, or we still have some ways to go on those? Because that was one of the big areas that was chewing up legal funds in the past couple of years as well.
This is more of a question for Chris Hansen, who's not here, but I don't know if Nancy knows.
The only thing I know is that the selectmen will be reviewing ordinance changes coming up soon, so I'm assuming we're nearing the end of ordinance review for this year.
Well, yeah, but we're talking next year.
Yeah, I don't know the answer. We can get that one answered, though.
Yeah, well, I mean, Chris will be here next week, so we can.
Right.
So just clue him in, we're gonna ask him that. Brian?
Yeah, 2 quick questions, Don. One on the service contracts, bringing or outsourcing to Paychex and to Advantage Payroll. With that time that was freed up, where did it go?
Oh, it went into human resources mostly.
Okay.
And it turned out to be trying to go from almost no human resources function to one that will be, I think, at the level that we'd like to see it. The selectmen would like to see it. I'd like to see it. It was and is a significant challenge and a real transition for us that we're working through. The person who's doing that, Rita Terrio, is doing a wonderful job. Various staff members are assisting her in various ways and capacities. There's going to be a lot of staff training needed, and it's but clearly the taking on that role has replaced and then some the work that would have been done on a payroll.
Makes sense. And the other question I had was on elections, and I don't know if you want to handle or Sue, but Sue has put in for an unanticipated election. I'm wondering if you considered the idea of not putting that money in and just utilizing undesignated funds should that come up. And the reason I ask that is I know that thankfully we didn't have the kinds of challenges that Sue might have anticipated we could have. So we have a very nice, we used about 25% of our election budget so far this year, I think, so.
And I did cut it by one election just for that reason. I'm sorry, is it not? Okay. That worked.
Something.
That worked really well.
Sing a song, Sue.
Yes. No, you don't want, my grandkids even tell me not to sing. I did cut the budget by one election just for that reason. And I'm getting more comfortable with how elections go and what aren't required. And last year, I proposed an extra election and then at budget time, and that was cut. So I put it forth more as a safety net.
Okay.
But it certainly could be eliminated.
Okay. Thank you very much. Those are mine.
Just a quick question. It's small, but I'm just looking and go, well, I wonder if maybe they looked at that. You do $800 for a postage meter and $110 for maintenance. Have we looked at stamps.com or something like that where they give you the postage meter, you don't have to maintain anything, and you just give the mail to the mailman. It can import existing databases for addresses. It does certified mail. It's $15.99 a month. I don't know, and they do it for corporations as well as, I think, small towns. But anyway, it's just a thought when I looked at how much it was, and
We can take a look at that.
yeah. So, thank you.
Any questions? I think there was just one thing I picked up on the travel and training. The mileage rate actually went down from last year from 15 to 16, but the mileage stipend has stayed the same. Are we anticipating more mileage, or are we looking at the same mileage?
Nancy?
The mileage stipend is gone, and that is a flat amount.
Okay. So that,
If you're talking about individuals, there's different, if you're talking about individuals, then
Different individuals take trainings and stuff each year, so we're kind of maintaining that same level.
okay. So that's picked up under the trainings and meetings instead of the stipend?
Right.
Okay.
Well, I've got one other, and it's,
Brian?
let me actually ask you about it. Employee compensation and training, which is on page 42, is that part of administration? Do we cover it here, or I know it didn't have a separate kind of line in our agenda. I didn't know where it gets picked up.
So you're talking to
I may be talking out of turn in other words. I don't know if this is the right place to pick up on it or not.
Yeah, it is new, and it wasn't on, I don't think it's on your outline at all.
It's not on the outline per se, because it still hasn't really fully gone through what you're going to do on that. I mean, you certainly kind of give a primer on it, but at this point, until the select board looks at that and makes, determines which way they want to go on that, whether it's going to be in here or not, is kind of up for grabs.
Basically, we haven't had, dedicated, formal funds for training, which is, and that's exposed some weaknesses, in our operations. We try to do things, sometimes you try to do things as inexpensively and informally as you can, and that, I think I've discovered this past year that, oftentimes that may put you behind the 8 ball more than the savings are worth, and so we talked about it as department heads, and you had Kevin, who's, very, very talented person, take a look at the kinds of training that, from a computer standpoint and other standpoint, that, and even as simple as, And actually, we did okay. We just went through a Bureau of Labor Standards review, and believe it or not, even though we're not satisfied with where we are, we actually, compared to other towns, came out okay. On that review, we weren't perfect, but we were, you know, pretty good. And so we've got now an opportunity, I think, just to pause and say, what is it we should be doing? What will it cost? How can we improve the skill sets of our employees and do that in the most efficient way possible? And so that's kind of what we've tried to put together. We're open to other suggestions, other ideas, but it's a step into a formalized training system and program, and this is brand new for us.
Yeah. And if I may, just first of all, on the merit increases, you know, obviously being on the compensation committee, I think you know I'm all for that. I'm glad to see that being considered in the budget. And on the training part of it, I saw Kevin's note about using lynda.com, and the comment I was going to make is, and it sounds like you're exactly there, there's a lot of logistics that go into if you're going to use computer-based training across the organization, because the license you're talking about is for 50 people, so it would be across the entire organization, is, you know, access to computers and the like, and making sure that, and it looks like Kevin's already looked at a piece of it in terms of, does lynda.com cover all of the different areas that you need? And I'm wondering, it may be, the thought that came to my mind is there a next level down in terms of, instead of 50 employees, maybe something that's smaller that might not cover everybody, and do a trial run on it to see whether you can get the uptake and the like, and you know, when do people utilize it? Is it on their hourly time? Is it done separately? And kind of work through some of what I would guess is going to be just the growing pains. But I'm all for the idea of having continued training, and I think it's great.
Right.
That
We
you've got
can
it.
definitely look at that, but I think the idea, the overarching idea was, you know, one for all for one, that everybody should be required to have, you know, core competencies in the various programs that they're charged with operating, the various, you know, standards that they're charged with meeting, and so that there are a number of us, you know, depends on the department, depends on the person, but there are different training requirements, different certifications you have to maintain, but the core, can somebody, you know, operate their base programs? I mean, it's sort of been sink or swim. You have to do it at a proficient enough level to survive, but people are varying in their capabilities. And I mean, to your point, there are people here who are more power users and need to have more advanced training, and those are the people who probably, you know, definitely have to have this and need this, and then there are people who could probably, you know, skate by with a more minimal approach. But is that, I mean, we have to have a discussion about, is that what we want or not, and shouldn't we try to get everybody to the highest level we can?
Yeah, totally agree with you on the ultimate objective. I guess it's how you get there.
How do we get there? But
Yeah.
we could maybe step in, perhaps by looking at a more limited license. We can check on that.
Maybe combined with some other things which might not be, what I was suggesting is possibly non-computer based, that might be taking care of some of the other things that might not yet be covered by Lynda, because I'm noticing from an asterisk standpoint, there's a number of areas that aren't currently training areas that they cover. So.
Right. I don't know. I've never done this. I can tell you that taking federal testing online without, well, with some level, you remember that, the NIMS training and testing, that was a real barrel of monkeys, I can tell you that. So to get National Incident Management certifications, you take training online and then you take tests.
Yeah.
It's
the world's going that way, obviously, with all the Kaplan universities and Phoenix universities that are out there and the like. So I think it's probably the way we'll.
Yeah. So a number of us have already been to the Kaplan University of the federal government. So,
Thanks, Don.
Okay.
I see that you have up to 75 members, 50 employees that could participate in that program. Obviously, we don't have that many employees in our town. Can we couple with
Other towns.
other communities under one license?
Quantity discount, tell them we get.
We could certainly ask him, but I don't think, as far as I know, I mean, it's possible Wyndham's doing something, but I don't believe anybody else is doing this.
Fire department has 35 employees.
There's half of
You
it.
gotta remember them.
Okay, I was looking at the curriculum or training offered, and I don't know where a lot of that would apply to the fire department, but.
Maybe back in years too.
We could certainly, you know, ask and see if anyone has interest.
Kevin has already approached us and said the training is for us also.
Okay.
We're not all members, but
There you go. Guess we don't talk at home.
Careful about it.
As long as, I don't know if I want to open this one up, but as long as we're in the topic of computers and computing, after a many-year experiment, I guess I'd call it, with open source software, and I can let the clerk amplify if needed on this. What?
I'll behave.
Okay, so we're moving into, the Microsoft, Office products, and we're going to eliminate the problems that we've been having with interoperability and management. I don't think that Kevin and company were wrong with open source, because I go to the national conference where the cities, large cities across the United States are talking about it, doing it. But being an early adopter in Maine as a small town maybe isn't the best place to be. So for the lost efficiency and time that we spend with that, the problems we have, it may be better to get trained and have a standardized operating system. I think the clerk may want to comment on it, I don't know.
Amen.
So that's something, that's a change. But we had monies available in the budget to do that, licensing, and so we're moving that direction, which will probably make a lot of people's lives better, easier.
It already has.
You have Microsoft Office in the cloud now, it doesn't have to be.
Any questions on administration?
Teresa.
I do. Sorry.
Teresa?
Do you have extra money sitting aside here? I know I've talked to you about training for the employees all around as far as like overall office procedures in case somebody comes in, like the angry customer.
Oh, yeah. That's something, I noticed, this went on in MMA, but MMA just sent out a bulletin, they charge double. It says MMA member towns, $75, non-member towns, $150, but it should say Raymond probably, because that's who it is. But anyway, so they offer a program. I noticed, I got it in my email tonight, but I'm sure there are other vendors, people, but customer service, and I think that's a great idea, and I want to do that. That's one of my goals. I would like to do that. I'd like to also, the other thing, we did it with Brian a few years ago, but to possibly have some kind of a retreat around the idea of customer service and employee relations and working together, that kind of stuff is another goal. But monies, I think we can find the monies if we need to do that. We'll find them.
Just as a comment, when I was in high school, I had kids watching that type of video, getting ready for job interviews, and there's a bunch of them out there. They're just 15-minute, 20-minute YouTube videos.
Well, insurance companies should almost have something like that too.
Kmart, Target,
Oh, yeah?
Walmart, they all have them. So for what it's worth.
No, it's good.
Well, the internet's your friend. I don't know how many of you I know, and I have a problem. My first go-to is to see if there's a YouTube video, see if there's some kind of a solution, but you have to be careful too, though, because I've gotten in trouble doing that also.
Well, you got a free screen up there.
Because it depends on who puts the video up. Some people are better than others in terms of instructing you.
Questions on administration? Thank you. Next, we'll look at the library. Let's go to the
Hello, my name is Emily Allen, and I am the president of the Board of Trustees of the Raymond Village Library. We've had an awesome year, and we thank you guys very much for letting us present to you tonight. And thank the town for their increased contribution last year, which really helped us out to have such a successful year. We have a PowerPoint presentation, so I'm going to let that do most of the talking for me, at least at first, until we can answer any of your questions, which we welcome. So go ahead. Sheila's manning the presentation for me. So we're going to just start out with our adult programming, which was really, really successful this year. I think that we have a great director who can target the audience appropriately and is really setting up a lot of great programs that are attracting a lot of significant attention. You can see from the chart, we have already had this year to date 1,000 participants, over 1,000 participants in the adult programming, which is far more than either of the past 2 years, the entire fiscal years. So we're really off to a great start this year, and I think that's it for that one. Go ahead, Sheila. Okay, this is the children's programming, which has obviously always been pretty successful for us. And again, it's holding in there, pretty much the same levels as the previous 2 years. Of note here, of course, is that the number of attendees does not reflect any programs that are held outside of the library, which we estimate to be about 500 every year. Although I believe this year it was a little more because our summer reading program was very popular and was held quite often at the Public Safety Building. And otherwise, we're doing our story times and we're doing collaboration with different area organizations like Loon Echo. The fire department is there. You can see, I think everybody had a memorable time this past summer when they turned the hoses on for us. We have the Lego Club and Christmas with the Lions Club and just a number of things still going on. All right. This, I think, really denotes our outreach. Again, our director is great at outreach, and our board has been really trying to reach out as well. And this is just examples of all the community collaboration that we have done in the past year and are continuing to expand upon. Just a couple of pictures from that stargazing party we had up on the hill, and we just had a fundraiser with Sedona Wellness, and it was very successful. The kids had a wonderful time. All right. And I think a lot because of your increased contribution, we have sort of redoubled our efforts in fundraising and have really tried very hard to come up with some new ones. That Paint the Town there, you can see we also did the kids paint class. Those have been really successful. And you can see a couple of examples of other things that we're working on, trying to expand. Go ahead. So here you can see this is what it says. Basically, it is what we feel we have been able to do this year because of your increased contribution, with help from that. You can see we are continuing to expand, and now we have the staff able to address that. We feel, and obviously the statistics will show our circulation is increasing. Interlibrary loans, which do take some amount of time to process, those have increased. Computer use is up. We also took the opportunity to hire an online customer relationship manager and create a donor database, which really regrouped our efforts on our annual appeal in particular, but our donation process overall. And we're still working on it. It is still a work in progress. We are solidifying it, and we have a lot of returned addresses and that sort of thing from this last annual appeal. But we were also able to create an email appeal for the first time, which was very successful. And you can see the success of that demonstrated through the numbers. Year to date already, now this is an updated number from what you guys have because it includes the deposits from the last couple months, which I didn't have when I was putting out the spreadsheet. But you can see year to date we have already over $24,000 for the annual appeal, versus the entire year last year, which was 18.8. So we're doing really, really well with our increased donations. We also were able to hire a technology consultant, and we really appreciate him being there for the number of reasons that are denoted there. Also, we have done a couple of other things. We now have a new treasurer who has helped us analyze our bookkeeping. We are working with her alongside a bookkeeper to sort of just tighten up the way we're accounting for everything. We have hired a payroll service, which we really do feel is essential, and that will provide for continuity when the board switches, which it does tend to every year or so. And a tax accountant, which we also feel is essential. We had been having a volunteer tax accountant, which was very generous, but we do feel that it's time to be paying somebody to be looking at our books every year. And we created a new website, which hopefully you guys have all checked out. We think it's really great. And let's see, we've also, gotten our board in line with their expectations, and so that they understand what is expected of them. And again, we've been getting donations and that sort of thing continuously. Go ahead, Sheila. So this upcoming year, we do have a big year in front of us. Including just expanding circulation. We're hoping to increase our audiobooks and DVDs because they're very, very popular. I'm going from the bottom up. But, we're going to keep working with the tax accountant and the bookkeeper and our new treasurer, who's a volunteer, and really kind of tighten up the procedures. We are going to address some capital improvement issues that we've been having with the building. It's an old building at this point, and the back wall is falling apart. And we just received word from the fire department of some fire code issues that we will have to address. We are looking to join the Maine State Library Network, which will increase our internet connection. And I think most importantly for the library board, we're going to really solidify our standard operating procedures, document them. We're going to make sure that the continuity of the board is never at risk, regardless of who's coming on and who's leaving, whenever that need be. We are all volunteers, and it's a lot of work for us. So we're hoping to lay some foundations in place there to make it easier for everybody. This year, we're also going to start exploring expansion options. You can tell from our numbers that we don't have enough room. We are far past having enough room, in fact, and we do feel that we can provide an essential part of the town makeup is what we're hoping. Let's see. And then, of course, last, we are hoping to keep making progress on the salary competitiveness. We went into this a lot last year. We're looking at a 1.6% increase, call it a COLA or not. And that will basically increase it, from 7.4 to 76, 74.8 to 76. And we can talk about that. I'm sure you guys will have some questions regarding that. All right. This is just a nice survey that we felt should be included. It was recently conducted, and it really shows how important libraries are to the community, and what they're looking for out of libraries now. It is not a place of just books anymore. It's a community space. It's a place to learn new things through programs and new technologies. And in order to keep up with the demand, we need to address what they're asking us to do and what the community of Raymond is asking us to do. And it's just a nice little picture of one of our youngest patrons, who we provide services to all year long. Everybody in the community is welcome through our doors, and we would like to help Sheila with her battery. Now, we would like to be there for everybody who needs us. And that's it.
Just in time. Have a battery time. Questions? Brian?
Emily, first, thanks for all that you and the library do for this community. I think it's great, and I love the momentum that's happening. Couple questions. One is, as I looked at the budget, the revised budget that we got today,
Yes.
I guess the first question that just to talk about a little bit was the major addition was the depreciation expense, that line that was added for 3423. Can you just tell us what that's about?
Yes, I can tell you a little bit. We had our taxes done by the professional tax accountant this year, and she caught a couple of things that we weren't doing in the past, which she stated were dire or essential, that we really need to be doing, and one of that was depreciating, and we hadn't been doing that at all. So that was kind of included in the last month. So we haven't really had time to think about how we're going to account for that yet, but it will be something that's an ongoing expense. And I can't help you too much more than that. I don't know if, Sheila, you have more details.
Yeah, in essence, we found out that we weren't properly accounting for it. It's not that it changes, it's not that it changes the value of anything in our assets or liabilities, but what you're seeing in that line item is us catching up with approximately 4 years of lack of accounting for depreciation. So moving forward, that number will be much smaller because it'll be accumulated on a year-to-year basis.
And so
So-
this is a depreciation of copiers or printers or
And the
whatever.
physical plant
And the
itself,
physical
the
plant
building.
itself. Okay,
Mhm.
okay.
Just,
We'd hold on to it, Sheila.
can I stay with that?
Yeah, yeah, please.
My understanding of depreciation is that's a non-cash expense, and it doesn't belong above the income line, it belongs below the income line. So what you're, in essence, doing here is
Double count.
double counting, you're deflating.
I was wondering too, yeah, it seemed like a rather large.
Belongs below your line.
Okay, okay.
Yes. And we'll,
That's wonderful news, thank you.
Yes.
Your net
As-
loss is
as-
really
as-
1,000, not.
yeah,
Right,
as
okay.
Emily states,
Yeah.
we're beginning to get this all
Right,
clear.
I understand, yeah.
You're catching us midstream, shall we say.
Great. Second question was, just in terms of, I'm looking at the budget, and Emily, just using your 24,479 as
Sure.
the amount that's come in on the annual appeal. I think it puts, the bottom net income then, year-to-date at about 22,000. And I'm looking
Yes.
at your outstanding expenses for, essentially five months, we'll say, not 5.5. 5.5, 5 months, and I'm wondering, it looks like you're behind. So I'm just wondering how confident you are that you're going to be able to manage this budget. And I think one of the big ones, obviously, is investment income is budgeted for $6,000. You're at $89.
Yes.
So I just wanted to
Investment
kind of get
income
a sense of that.
is a large one. We took some money out of our investments last year in order to reinvest it. We have not quite reinvested it yet. And then investment income was down. So we are projecting a lower one going forward. And most of what more expenses you're going to see coming up is salary. I think, as far as other things are concerned, Sally does most of her book purchases and that sort of thing. They're pretty much almost all done, from what I understand. So a lot of the other expenses will be relatively stable, while the salary will be what's left.
Okay. Thank you. I'll let others go. Thanks.
I can step in.
Yep.
Go ahead, Deb.
Is it just, how many full-time employees?
One,
One?
yes.
How many part-time?
Two.
So it was the same last year too then?
Well, we hired one more.
Right.
No, I'm sorry, three.
Right.
I'm sorry.
I was gonna say.
We were changing one out right now. Somebody just left her job and we're hiring a new one. So sorry, I was thinking of the two who are there. So it's
So we
one
have-
full-time, three part-time.
Okay, so that's what you're paying for is for salary?
Yes.
Okay.
Just as a general comment, you're still in excess of 70% salary to total expenses.
Yes.
And I had the same feeling last year. What happens when you get that high is you are limiting your ability to create and pay for new programming, which
A
is the
lot of our-
heart of the library.
Yes.
And
A
I
lot
don't
of our
understand how-
programming expenses come from donations. A lot of the restricted donations, the grants and that sort of thing are helping us out with programming, which is how we've been able to continue with being so successful at it.
Okay, let's go to a detail then.
Mhm.
Okay, where do we get this $13,250 in programming and media? Is that all from private donations? All from donations? It can't be.
13,000, I'm sorry,
Right,
where are
and
you?
your proposed, summary proposed budget 16-17, total media.
Well, most of that
programs.
is books.
That goes to my point. Your ability to buy new books and materials and magazines and newspapers or whatever it is limited because your salaries are so high.
Right. That's true.
How do we address that?
I guess it's a good question. I mean, I can't imagine that in order to, we feel pretty confident in the fact that the staff that we have is able to handle the circulation statistics. So what we feel is that the staff that we have, the setup that we have right now, is able to handle the circulation, that the demand from the public. And so, I mean, if we reduce that, then we aren't able to sustain the circulation statistics.
That's not what I'm talking about.
But in
What
order to buy new
Right,
things,
that's what I'm talking about, new books.
you know,
new
I
things.
think it's more important to be able to manage the current circulation statistics than it is to buy the new things, personally.
Then you're not keeping up with what I would call fresh information in the library.
Well, I mean, there's a balance, of course. And I guess that's what I feel is like, obviously, we do need to buy some new things, but if we're not able to buy $12,500 worth of new things, we'd still need the staff there in order to manage the day-to-day business. I don't know, maybe Sally would, she's glaring at me over there, so.
Thank you.
Okay. That's sort of a personal feeling, but I think that when we had the 3 staff, it was a struggle for them to keep up with the circulation and the programs. Now that we have the 4, they seem to be able to get on top of things, which will allow us to go further. Hopefully, meaning the more fundraisers and stuff like that we do, the more income we can have to support the new stuff. So I guess what I mean is, like, if we have to not buy as much stuff now, I don't think it would be worth it to us to cut staff in order to buy. You know what I mean?
I'm not suggesting that.
Yeah. Otherwise, I can't imagine how we could reduce the payroll expense. I just.
Well, I think the answer to that is you if you're not reducing there, then your offset is increasing on the fund side.
Exactly.
And when I look, if I look at your point 4, point 4 there too, that part of the intent is looking at expansion.
Yeah.
Expansion is cost.
Yes, we're going slow on that because right now,
that has to be a paid for expansion.
Absolutely.
Excluding additional town funds.
Right.
So how are you going to do that? Maintain as well. Fundraising is always a dicey issue, but that is that's the heart of the budget.
Absolutely.
And when all of a sudden that's in half.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's exactly why we're taking the expansion really slowly. I think right now we're trying to beef up our fundraising, make sure that we can get to a point where expansion is a possibility, that it's sustainable for us and attainable. And I don't think that we're there right now. So we're just beginning to explore what it would take to get us to what we need to do to get us there.
Emily, do you think you'll hit your income, your fundraising income numbers? That's annual appeal, other fundraising, and total grants this year. You had 38.7 down.
Yeah, it's a very ambitious goal.
Okay.
We're doing everything we possibly can to.
Okay.
And it'll be close. So we're at 24 right now on the annual appeal. We do have a couple of really big fundraisers coming up. We've got a new one, an author, Tess Gerritsen, who's actually pretty famous. She's coming in. We're doing a nice sort of gala with her speaking and little appetizers and that sort of thing. So hopefully we can generate a bunch of money from that. And then also the plant sale hopefully will squeak in. No, it should. It'll squeak in this fiscal year, and that's usually over $1,000.
Okay.
So it'll be close, but I feel pretty good about it.
Okay.
Do you pay for your guest speakers?
It depends, actually. Sometimes they donate it to us, and sometimes we do pay.
I mean, you're looking at next year. You say you've got the ambitious goal to get to 38 this year. And next year, you're budgeting based on 42.
Yes.
So
it's with the idea that this donor database.
Is there something else new that's in the works that?
It's with the idea that this donor database system is brand new this year, and that we can really get it to work for us in the upcoming year, as well as just all of the work that we're doing, sort of interconnecting with social media. And that sort of thing, and all of the work we're doing on the fundraisers to get new ones in, to promote them, and I think that, coupled with the restricted donations, we're also working on some of those to get larger amounts of money in. I'm really thinking that, this is it's a motivated board. I think once we set a goal for ourselves, we're going to work as hard as we possibly can to get to it.
Well, I'm not disputing it, you're gonna work hard.
But I'm hoping, that alongside all of those, the fundraisers and the annual appeal, the donor database, coupled with the drive to get a little bit higher donations, larger donations, I think we have a chance.
You're talking about restricted donations. Are those are included in there? Or?
Those are included. Yep. We're projecting 3,000. Last year we got about 5,500. This year we're already about 3,000. So I thought it was kind of, I tried to go conservative. I think we're closer to 5,000 right now. We got another $2,000 in the last month.
And those typically are restricted to buying materials? Or
it's generally, they usually indicate it for programs, like Gorham Savings said children's programs, and some of the other ones, I think Innovative Distribution Systems is more adult programs.
Questions? Mike?
Emily, you weren't standing here last year, so I'm going to put you on the spot. As we headed the town meeting last year, I don't have my notes in front of me, my recollection of discussion was 50-50.
Okay.
Between town and library.
Okay.
Your estimates now show you for this year, not even close to 50-50, and you're asking for a $5,000 increase. That's going to be tough for me, given what we talked about last April. All right. As I said, you weren't sitting here, but I have to grab my book and try and go back, and we talked about a 50-50. So I don't know if there's more explanation of how the what I thought was going to be 55 turned into what's now projected at 35.
Right. I mean, 50-50, I don't know how we would have a library at $42,000 expenses. I don't think it would exist, I don't think we could raise all of the money ourselves, and I think that you would probably have to say goodbye to the library. I don't mean to be dramatic, but it's already pretty hard.
Right, but that's not my question. I'm curious where the number went.
Where the number went from, why did it go up?
We were looking at a budget that was 110 if we were talking 50-50 in April last year. And now I'm looking at a budget that doesn't even talk about 110. And part of what I did, but in order to give you support for town meeting, was I challenged you to raise $2,500 more.
Yes.
To get to 50-50. And I can't reconcile that number here until I grab my book from last year. So I guess part of what I'd love an explanation of, not tonight, is what happened to that 50-50 or 50-50 less $2,500 before I even start considering the extra $5.
Okay.
Just because I'm not seeing that split. So I am putting you on the spot.
That's fine. I mean, I appreciate being put on the spot, and I do really appreciate all these questions too, because it kind of helps us figure out, everything. So, what you're asking is, we have are showing. This is the fiscal year 15-16, the one that we're in right now. We budgeted 99,725 in income, and I see. Okay.
So what I'm saying is
you guys are giving 55.
The discussion last year was 50-50, and you guys were 2,500 short of a 50-50 match at that 5,500 level. That is not what's reflected in this. Oh, do you have last year's?
Mike, I do remember it being somewhat aspirational, that I think we were
Right.
kind of saying aspirationally, moving forward, we would see the town not exceeding that 50% in terms of the kind of public-private partnership. That was my remembrance,
Right.
just to kind of.
And we were just shy of it, I
Yeah.
think, last year.
Yeah.
Now, I'll give you this back at the end of the meeting, Brian.
Yeah.
I think we were 2,500 shy of that 50-50 mix at
Right.
that final meeting. I just don't see that reflected here.
Right.
So there's been adjustments, and I'm just.
In the wrong way.
Well, it doesn't mean wrong way. I'm just curious
I-
how the adjustments
Right.
came about, and is it just a reality check?
I mostly, a lot of the money is going to the back wall project. I think is what we've done some decreasing of expenses and annual appeal and that sort of thing. We do have the capital improvement that we weren't looking at last year. Not the same.
Mm-hmm.
So I see it's a 45.5 to 60 right now. Is what I'm looking at for the projected next year.
Right, if you take 60 off your total, sure.
Yep. And obviously you can see where the increases are. I don't know if any of them strike you as particularly out of the ordinary, or you know what I mean. I think.
I'm gonna switch gears on you.
Okay.
It's your budget to manage.
Sure.
It's our request money.
Yes.
So it's not about what you propose to increase. It's not like Don's budget.
Right, but I didn't know if there was anything that was striking you as being over the top.
I'll be as polite as I can. No, it's your budget. I don't care how you spend your money. It's how you raise your money.
Okay.
And when I talk about the 50-50, I appreciate you showing us the budget, but I don't care how you spend it.
That's fine. So you just care how we make it.
Correct.
Okay.
It's you're a separate entity, separate board.
Oh yes.
You're making a budget request. I understand that.
Well, and I
But
was
it's
trying to just show you, you had asked why it wasn't 50-50. And I was just trying to address why.
But it's only revenue, not expense.
That's fine.
This is only my perspective, and I know I'm making people uncomfortable, but.
Well, honestly, I would say we would make 60 if we could. I wrote down what I really thought we possibly could make, the most we possibly could make with the 6 people on the board, and that's what I wrote down.
That's great. All right. Thank you.
And just for the record, I do like to understand where the money's also going.
Thanks. Well, thank you. All right, this is your budget. We have no control. Last year, what I said was, if the town is paying more than 50% of your budget, it ought to be a town department so we can manage it. Now you're at over 60%.
Yep.
In 2 years, you're asking for a 50% increase in 2 years. You got a 40-something% increase last year. You're giving a raise that's more than what the town is giving its employees. You're not even close to your fundraising goal. Yet I hear there's so much more demand at the library, yet nobody's coughing up any money for you.
I think that's not true. We have $24,000 already in the annual appeal, and that's way more than what we had last year.
You're trying to raise 38, and I don't think you're gonna hit it.
Well,
And then you're
thanks for the
asking for
confidence.
42, then you're asking for 42,000 next year that you're gonna try and raise.
We are going to try and raise it.
Right, you're gonna try, but why not be realistic in your budget? If you can't make it, I'd rather see you come close than not even come close. Because when you do this kind of stuff and say, I'm gonna raise 40,000, and you only raise 30, what that says to me is you're being unrealistic, you're making it look good. Businesses that do that go out of business very quickly. So be realistic, and say,
We are trying to be realistic.
Well-
We are trying to be realistic. I'm not kidding. Like, we've done a lot of changes at the library in the last year. A lot of changes. And I'm not talking about them that much because I don't want to divulge, like, all of the different things that we've done to make it a better place, to make it a more successful place, to make it a more attractive place. And we really, really do feel like all of the stuff that we've done is going to get those donations in. So I'm not just throwing a number out there. I'm really not. Like, I'm really thinking we could make that number.
okay, you gotta prove it though.
We got to prove it.
Yeah.
We're doing a really good job this year. I mean, the
I'm not
numbers that you're
questioning
looking
how
at.
hard you're working and all
No,
that.
no, and I know you're not.
Yeah.
But the numbers that you're looking at here are more now. If you put I mean, I can do the math.
Emily, I did it for you in case
Thank
you
you.
want it. So if the annual appeal is at 24,479 and the total grants is at 5,005, you're at 35,171.
35,171.
Yeah. So
And of a goal of 38,700.
yeah. So you're within.
So I just don't think that's unrealistic, frankly.
So yeah, it may be that we were, because we were seeing numbers that were.
It's been 2 months since these numbers, and
Yeah,
I'm sorry about
that's
that.
fine,
That
that's
we were
fine,
changing to a bookkeeper, and the bookkeeper did not get us the updated numbers in time. So I apologize for that.
I'm Whitney Lucas. I'm a board member as well, and just Emily's just been an amazing president to work with, and I just came up just to back her up that we've been, with these numbers, just like you guys said, our goal was to increase it because of the numbers of patrons and different events that Sally's been doing and all this stuff. So we have to have some, achieving goal, and if we can get there, great. But we did think it was very realistic to hit it, and we just want that to come across that really we felt that this was a realistic goal. We even had a full discussion about it. We didn't want to go over a certain number. We said, wait, we could do this because look at these patron numbers we're having between the events, just general patrons, different things that we're doing to make things more appealing, and even all the processes we've been doing. It's really been night and day compared to where it was a few years ago with some of the things that weren't being done. So we really have been working hard, of course, but working hard to make things more efficient, and that's really been a goal of us. So.
Emily, the next time we look at this budget will be March 29th.
Yes.
And perhaps you can take some time and redo some of these figures on this.
Oh,
like
absolutely.
Get the depreciation
I
out.
will definitely update them with current information.
Can we have that a week before the 29th, please?
Absolutely, yep. Again, this past month has been very active with the bookkeeper and the new treasurer. I mean, the bookkeeper came in December, treasurer came in January. We got our taxes redone in January. And so, honestly, the last month has been quite up and down with our finances. So I will definitely get those to you beforehand. And again, I do think we're proving it. I do think we're proving that we can make this fundraising happen. I mean, all we can do is keep proving it.
I'd also like to know how they carry forward depreciation.
It's creative accounting.
It is creative accounting.
Well, they're getting the books in order, so that's good.
Well,
I can give you the name of our account.
I don't want that.
Accelerated depreciation.
Ralph, just a comment, again,
Sure.
thanks for all you guys do.
Oh, no
This is,
problem.
I know your volunteer organization in terms of the board and the like, and I think the library is a great asset in town.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
I just have one more comment.
Sure.
When this library was started back in I think it was early 70s, they never wanted money from the town. They wanted to do it on their own. And now we're up here asking for $60,000. It's incredible.
It's a very different world in libraries.
It is. It absolutely is.
Yeah.
But you gotta look back at the history of the town and where it was, where Eleanor Plummer started this thing way back when with Betty McDermott and all kinds of other people who never wanted town money. And then it slowly has increased to now we're at $60,000.
Well, it doesn't stop there either because we're
Right.
paying for 2 libraries in the schools.
Right. So.
I mean, I would just like to say one thing. There obviously it could be a town department, and if you guys really want it, you can make the case to have it. It would lose its nonprofit status. It would fail to be able to apply for grants and that sort of thing. You would have to manage all the salaries and the budget and all of that. But if you guys want it, you need to tell us that you want it.
we're up here because we believe in the library, and we hope that everyone in this room believes in the library. That
We believe in
as
this
as a
town.
great thing. It's not, between, we're both parents and.
I moved here 8 years ago from Boston. I looked everywhere to where I wanted to live, and I picked Raymond, Maine. And one of the first things I did was I went to the library to meet new people. And I think I'm not the only one. I'm definitely not the only one.
I'm the same thing. Like, I grew up out in Long Island, New York, where I'm talking about libraries that have budgets of millions of dollars, ridiculous. I'm amazed at what my town has right now as the library.
Building new libraries
yeah,
like crazy.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
With beautiful views.
I don't, it's almost shameful, I think, to be talking about, times have changed. I don't know what the library was in the 70s. Maybe it sounded more like a club, and people got together and, hey, get some books, and maybe there was a certain donor that donated a lot. I don't know exactly, but we are where we are. We would love to have someone who just says, I want to donate. We are much more of a service. A library is a service. A fire department, my grandfather was a New York City fireman for 22 years. I believe in that more than anybody. But a library is a completely different entity compared to a service, anything in a town. So it's almost a whole different beast to be talking about. Where's the budget? We're talking about we need to make money so that we can do things, so that we can provide free things. And that's what a library is, for the most part. So we're just trying to make a way to provide something for the community.
I think the library is a great thing, and I'm not doing it to down anything, but when you make the phrase every time that it's a volunteer, it's not volunteer. Some of it is.
The board. No, the board is volunteer.
Right.
That's all I meant to say.
People are getting paid.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, and that's one of our biggest expenses.
Right.
But I'm trying to say is it's a volunteer board, because I think that gets forgotten sometimes, that the people who are helping to run it none of us are getting paid.
Right. I agree with that. I mean, there are people that volunteer.
Yeah, absolutely.
And some people that are getting paid. But the people that are getting paid are continuing getting raises.
Well, last year was the first time that we gave them a raise in, I believe, 2 years or 3 years. They went from $9.30 to $10. And this year we have predicted a 16-cent raise, so we're getting $10.16. Which, the difference between the two, I was calculating before, is less than $1,000. It's $700 if we went with the town's COLA of 0.6, or if we went with our 1.6. It's $700, which we could definitely take out and do a 0.6% raise like the town is doing. That we could do that. We think $10.16 is fair. It's not that much money, but that's the way we're budgeting it. And we'll see how you guys respond to our request.
Question? Bob?
I'd like to say that I think the library is an exciting place, and you guys are being very aggressive in new programming and offerings. And what goes unseen over the past 2 years, that you've actually added 40 extra days of open time. So you're open 40 days more per year than you were 2 years ago. That comes at a cost. And I realize that, and it's part of the programming that you're aggressive in getting the community excited. Again, you're trying to grow and trying to accommodate our community, and I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Other questions?
Thank you. All right, thank you very much.
Assessing.
Okay, assessing. We have a request for increased hours for administrative support from 10 hours a week to 16 hours a week at a reduced rate. What's happened, of course, is we had a full-time person who was doing various classifications of administrative support in the town office, supporting various departments, including assessing. That's changed now. We've gone to a new proposal, which is 2 part-time people at 24 hours per week. And we have discovered over time that we weren't putting the kind of, I think, time and effort we needed into the assessing function, putting a higher burden on our contract assessor than what we originally had represented. And so I call it sort of, back to the basics. And we are now looking at, by using part-time people, a system that's more akin to what we had 5 or 10 years ago. And in those days, I can't remember now, maybe Nancy can recall what Elizabeth's total hours were. She was the last person who held that part-time position. Do you remember
I
exactly?
only think 24.
24, yeah. So yeah, it's an increase, it's a change, but I think we owe it to our contract assessor to provide the level of support that he needs. I think we got going in too many different directions, too dispersed in that position. So I'm recommending that we give him that support. And of course, the other thing that's changed too is that, relatively speaking, things are happening. Things are, development is occurring, and there's additional work to be done in that department. So that's what the change is. And then, of course, there's a small increase in software maintenance. As far as the administrative thing goes, well, I'm on it, I guess. I would say that I'm reducing my time. I've discovered through the transition, I've been reducing it for a while, but that I can get by without the support, and I'm actually proposing that we give some support to our Public Works Director, a little bit of support. He really needs it, and I think the assessor needs more, and so we're just kind of rebalancing the scale and putting it where it needs to go. And once I get super duper trained in computers, who knows? Anything's possible.
They could call it in.
And,
Makes me cough, don't
be a hot tech superstar then.
Brian?
I think this is as good a time as any, Don. I sent a bunch of questions out on Friday afternoon. I said...
Are those yours or the other Brian's? I couldn't remember.
It was troublemaker me. But I just wanted to say, and I tried to say in as many underlined and bolded, no need to get back to me with a response before the meeting, but thank you very much. I had responses back Monday morning, and I appreciate it. But one of the points that you made and one of the questions that I had was about and I thought it was a really good one, of having that flexibility in terms of the administrators of being able to kind of cover for sick time and the like. And I didn't know if you wanted to talk about that at all.
That's important. Thank you. We found out when you put all those different classifications in one person, and as it turned out, there was an issue where there was an extended leave, and then you don't have that person, or even if there's just a vacation. So by having two people, you increase your coverage and depth, and so there's a little bit of overlap in the middle of the week, let's say. But I mean, we're just starting. We've hired both positions. In fact, I think the second person may start tomorrow. I'm thinking after a little vacation time. Is that correct, Sue?
Wednesday, I believe.
Wednesday. Okay. So we have one on board now. The second one starting soon, and I think it is going to be an improvement.
Yep. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you for that point.
Questions on assessment? G&A.
GA, $6,000, no change. The change though in GA, I think we covered it back in administration, is the number of hours. And we had reduced that, and now we're proposing to increase that. I think it was 8 back to 15, but that's, or to 15, but that was in Sue's proposal, front office proposal, and that was in administration. So that's the principal change in GA, no money change. I think somebody asked the question, it must have been this Brian.
Yeah,
I got my Brian's mixed up.
Yeah, it's a troublemaker again.
But whether we were over, and I don't think that's the case, 50% reimbursement from the state. Yeah. And, we don't mix community assistance money to balance it out. The community assistance money is different. It's, the GA money is for people who are qualified under law for general assistance, and so they go through that program. The community assistance is a different program, and I have more flexibility. And I say it's actually administered by the GA officer, but I oftentimes am involved in the decisions. But we try to concentrate on people who may not necessarily be qualified for GA, but are struggling, working hard, the working poor, are having a hard time making ends meet, let's say fuel oil, some sort of basic necessity, don't quite qualify for GA, but have demonstrated need and they're trying to help themselves. That's community assistance, different than general assistance.
Thanks.
Other questions? Infrastructure.
Infrastructure is streetlights.
Right.
And streetlights are 21,816.
No new streetlights proposed.
I'm not proposing any. Do you want one?
No.
Wasn't there one that was broken?
We used to do surveys years ago. We did streetlight surveys. And you know what happened to do a streetlight survey? You'd add streetlights. You'd add streetlights every time.
What are we gonna do about the one that's broken?
Okay, that's a Nathan question, the one that got hit by the car.
Yeah.
Which caused, Nathan, do you know what that is on the, Nancy, on the insurance spectrum, where we are with those light that got hit by the car? Which knocked out that leg. you know?
Should be from there.
Well, it should be covered by insurance.
Oh, no, it's covered, but I just want where we are on, you wanna know where we are on
Nope,
that?
just so, yeah, it's being
We can
paid
find out
for.
the answer and get back to you.
Okay.
That happened, actually, that was very exciting during a Raymond Revitalization Committee meeting. I was standing with Marshall, and all of a sudden, a car comes careening down the sidewalk, hits a tree, hits a street light, shears it off, hits a tree, topples the tree. Very exciting.
So I don't get within 50 feet of
So we went over, and I don't know if there was much help, were we? But luckily, somebody, a passerby who had public safety training stopped, thankfully, and
That was Kathy.
no, there was somebody before you. Yeah, before you, there was a man who seemed to know what he was doing, and we let him do it. I called Nathan, I called public safety. Because I thought we got a sheared pole, you know, maybe we got an electrical hazard, that was what I was thinking. That's a good thought, right?
Yeah, that's your story, huh?
It's good. That was a good thing.
Other questions on streetlights? Solid waste.
Pine Tree Waste, as I said, they're getting a 0.6 increase per negotiations, or $760 each way. Both curbside pickup and recycling, they're very excited about that increase. Now, actually, Pine Tree is a great company, and I should tell you that we work very closely with them cooperatively, and we get very, very few complaints. So probably every time they get the trash they can pick this week, they do call me with that. But on average, I don't get many complaints, and they're a very responsive company.
We are on the last year of our contract with Pine Tree Waste. Is there much competition in that arena where we could look to possibly change vendor, or are we that
Well, the
closely
principal
tied?
competitor was BBI, Blow Brothers Industries, and they were absorbed by Pine Tree Waste. You know, there are other competitors, and we would put it out to other competitors, and we'll see what happens. But is there a lot of competition in the solid waste world? There is not. You know, there may be something, and I don't know, this is a decision that we need to it's down the road, you know, to discuss, but there may be some value in trying to negotiate. I don't know, I haven't got there yet, but we have to look and see what's available for competition. That is a great question. I can tell you that a low price with a bad vendor would be a bad deal.
Yes.
I'd rather have
We've done that.
We've done that, yeah.
Been there.
BBI was terrible.
Mhm.
They really were. So, but we'll get there on that one.
Well,
Brian?
this is probably more a comment than question for anybody who might be listening at home, but we will, the upcoming budget, have $61,500 for our tipping fees. That's basically the cost that we have to pay to put garbage into the system. That's different than the pickup. Anything that is appropriately recyclable doesn't have to get tipped, and therefore would reduce that cost. So if you want to help manage and control your taxes, appropriately recycle when you can. And if you need information on that, you can get it at the town hall. And I just urge people to do that. It's very easy. It's what they call single sort. All the things that are appropriate can all go into one. I use a large trash can that is appropriately marked. And it's amazing how little garbage you can actually put out if you recycle things and compost things. And that reduces our taxes. And if we made it all evaporate, it would be $68,000 a year, which is not something to sneeze at. So, sorry, that was my public service
And
message.
I would tell you that that's a great comment. I'll tell you another great comment. Be thankful that you're not a PERC community. Be thankful, I mean, the farmers of Raymond, let's call it that, the conservatives of Raymond went with MWAC years ago, and a lot of people said MWAC was going to be a failed deal. I would have said that. I was on the PERC board, but it's turned out to be a very reliable and cost-effective and right decision, good decision. I think we had the alternatives at the time, and it's still going strong. When the majors, the PERCs and the MERCs have failed, and economically and otherwise, and so I would tell you, what you say is true, and MWAC has turned out to be a good option.
Any questions on solid waste? Insurance?
Insurance, we have a Social Security match based on salaries, but as I said, that's to be determined. It's just a placeholder. And it's across all the salaries, and they may not because of the nature of a merit system and gradients and so forth, they may not apply to every salary in the budget. And it maybe there's a different number. I'll have a lot more to know. I'll know a lot more about where we're going with that after the presentation and after the selectmen have a chance to address that. So, let's see. That was the Social Security, I'm sorry, that was the Social Security match. I got that myself. Social Security match was based on salaries. And so until we know what the salaries are, we won't really know, I guess, exactly. Projected increase in costs of insurance. Nancy's saying no actual figures available at this time. That's a definitive one, huh? And so we rely on our insurance representatives to give us some projections. I think somebody asked the question about why. That was a vehicle question, right? Something about vehicles.
No, it was the public liability, public liability.
And public officials' liability. Okay.
But that was, and the answer to that was because there was more people, it had to be bonded.
Bonded, right. ICMA projected decrease due to fewer participants. That's the whole going from full-time to part-time. And the rescue billing, small increase, $500 is what I have for notes here under the insurance group. You want to add anything, Nancy? You sure? Seems a little light to me.
Well,
John, staffing-wise, is there a decrease of full-time staff members?
Yes.
If that's the case, wouldn't I be seeing lower figures for insurance? I realize there's growth, but you've eliminated a couple benefit packages, but it doesn't seem to affect this line.
I think Nancy's going to give us an answer.
The insurance rates currently are based not only on the number of people, but the ages of the people. And I hate to say it, but we have an aging employees population.
I'm shocked.
And if they have family coverage, of course, that covers both individuals who may be older. So. And I did put in a 7% increase because we don't know what the price is going to be. And as Joe mentioned at an earlier meeting, they're quite volatile. The prices are quite volatile right now.
I think you're going to see that go up even more next year.
Well, we were 15% this year. Starting at 24, got them down to 15.
You only went up 7, didn't you?
I saw 12.
Maybe I should put more.
Well, yeah. Wow.
Rescue billing. There, if I back into it, either this number's not right or the revenue number's not right.
I don't like to make them equal.
Oh, okay. Because
I like to have a little more on the expense side, a little less on the revenue side.
okay, because using that as it's saying, but you see where I'm coming from. Okay.
And I can change it if you want me to.
Well, I just what I didn't know was whether that was the revenue side, because there's some accommodations. This is just truly 8% of whatever we collect.
Yes.
So we don't have any write-offs after that would reduce the income side.
We collected $97,000 year-to-date in rescue revenues.
That's up quite a bit, isn't it?
No, that's 7 months total, which gives us a little less than 14,000 a month average. But remember, March and April are usually our 2 slowest months of the year. So we've gone through the summer, which is our high points of call volume.
Yeah, but
Do we need to create more accidents out there?
But you'd also have an offset on that, because if, you know, if the summer months are your high months on volume, your collections aren't gonna be for 60 or 90 days.
Correct, so I have 7 months already in. So that would include the summer months, should have already been collected. And we're at 97,261 for 7 months. So we may be a little higher this year, but it's not going to be, you know, we may be 155, 160. December was low for us, which was good.
When we do, are we collecting if we do a mutual aid call?
Say that again?
Are we collecting if we do a mutual aid call, or is it just in town?
We collect for mutual aid if the rescue transport them, definitely. All of our transports get billed.
Any questions on insurance? Revenues.
Revenues, so we got a decrease of $1,000 in projected revenue from the cable franchise fees. As you may know, our franchise agreement is long expired. There's no benefit, none zero, in negotiating a new one. It will only be worse. So we've continued on with our existing agreement. I would guess that's related to people, you know, cutting the cable, looking at other options, and, you know, I don't think the future is bright for cable television and cable television revenues. Excise tax is a projected increase of $28,000. This year's been a, you know, good year, and I think we're seeing a, you know, an uptick in new automobiles, used automobiles being registered. Local road assistance, anticipated increase of 500. Tree growth, increase of 400. Snowmobile reimbursements, increase of 400. CEO income, this is a significant one, increase of 15,000. Solid waste bag tag income, decrease of 150. Investment income, increase of 3,000 projected. Parking fines, no revenue expected. Snow plowing income. The school decided to outsource or privatize, if you will, their plowing here. So after decades of providing plowing for nothing, we've a few years done it for a fee, but we're no longer doing that, which is you know, there's all kinds of comments you can make around that, but the one that I'd make that's really positive, I think, is that it does free us up to possibly take on some more road work in our renegotiated snowplow contract and reduce that cost and utilize our crews on the roadways versus in the schools.
Or we could save it on accelerated maintenance.
Say again?
We can save it on accelerated maintenance.
Okay. Fund balance, we're requesting the use of $75,000 to help pay for the replacement of the you know, asphalt roof on the public safety building. The homestead exemption reimbursement, it's an estimate of $30,000 increase per Kurt LaBelle. The homestead exemption increased from $10,000 to $15,000, and the Betty reimbursement is $1,277 estimated increase. So those are kind of a very fast tour through revenues.
Don, quick question, what's Betty revenue? Sorry.
Business equipment.
Business equipment.
What was it again?
Business equipment tax reimbursement.
Oh, okay, thank you.
No, Bob?
Homestead exemption reimbursement rose by 30,000 over the past 5 years. We've been trickling $3,000-4,000 increases. All of a sudden, we're looking at 91,000, where last year we were looking at 60,000. Where does that growth come from?
They went from 10 to 15%. The legislature.
It's a homestead exemption.
Okay.
Outside the town's control.
Okay.
More on your check.
You're gonna get a tax break.
Yeah. Right. That's gonna help me.
On public safety income, line 3380. Is that Fry Island?
3380 is, yeah.
Yes, and
The 15,000.
Right. And they didn't pay last year either, did they? Did they pay last year?
yeah.
Graded.
Yeah, you're thinking of
Graded.
correct.
Graded.
Gray didn't. Gray is
Ray's
now
off the
doing.
list, yeah, but.
To put a little, I kind of touched on it in just a very, very kind of, you know, brief way, but to put a somewhat finer point on it for folks who don't know, I mean, like I said, there's a lot of politics. I think it's an extremely long shot, but there is a group of citizens in Gray who are interested in cooperating with us. You've seen that in the news.
Right.
The other town that has approached us over many times, over many years, is Fry Island, and we are addressing a request from Fry Island, and we'll be shipping that to them soon. And so I may have something in addition to this. This will remain. There may be something else that's coming, and so I guess the good news is we do have some level of interest, demand for services from our neighbors. So if you can count that as we might be doing something okay, then that's how I would look at it. So more to come on that, hopefully. At least on the Fry Island one.
That's good.
The other one's good publicity, if nothing else.
Yeah.
Other questions on revenues? Okay. TIF.
Decrease in bond payments, a decrease in requests for the 302, 303 corridor, an increase in RWPA request to 2,500. The Lake Region bus was moved to TIF from community development. The 2015-16 appropriation 5,000. The request then, and I think this year too, is 9656 for 16-17, an increase of 4656. I believe there may be somebody here to speak on that, possibly. Yep, okay. And I think we may have been the only community that didn't fund it at its requested level last year. They're asking for that this year.
Questions?
Did this gentleman wish to speak? Or?
Are you Jack?
Yes.
Yes, hi.
Hi, just 2 minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
I say okay, I'm not the decider. Is that okay, Rolf?
Pardon?
Is it okay for him to speak?
Yes.
You've already cut into his 2 minutes.
I'll go doubly quick. And so thank you for having me provide a few words on this project and for considering our proposal of 9,600. In December 2013, after years of planning and discussions about bringing the public transportation service to the Lakes region, RTP and many of its partners commenced the service between Naples and Portland. After the first year, we added, actually last August, we added a Bridgeton stop. So now we provide 4 round trips each weekday between Bridgeton and Portland, with several stops in between. We do so with 1 large bus. That bus is equipped with Wi-Fi, bike racks. It's very comfortable. And based on past surveys and recent surveys, the folks that are using the service feel it's comfortable, it's timely, dependable, and it's safe. And most importantly, again, this is a network activity. It's not just RTP providing this. We operate the bus. But the Maine Department of Transportation helps to fund this. The Federal Transit Association helps to fund. The 5 towns, including Raymond, that are served by this service help to fund this. Cumberland County put in, through the Department of Energy, they administered a grant to buy the bus, and that amounted to $50,000. So there are many players and partners in this endeavor to make it work. Again, it's not just RTP. So I think over the past 2 years, we've established a dependable service. We've added the Bridgeton stop. We're having positive surveys in terms of the ridership. And we increased ridership from this calendar year compared to last calendar year. In other words, calendar year 2015 compared to calendar year 2014, we increased ridership by 20%. So in 2015, we provided 6,462 trips, and that's up 20%, as I said, compared to the prior year. We're aiming for 8,000 trips in the coming year. a key challenge we have right now is not securing the funding we're asking for, but to get the word out about the bus. And we're making many efforts in terms of stepping up the promotion. We have a large ad in the Bridgeton Chamber magazine, in the Sebago Chamber magazine. The Community Transportation Association of America, CTAA, is actually coming on board and investing $10,000 to help us better promote and getting the word out in the Lakes region. And also, we've applied through the town of, the town of Wyndham and the town of Bridgeton for community development block grants. And the purpose of the block grants would be to provide funding for low-income and moderate-income residents so they can use the service. And we're pretty excited about that. So most importantly, we look to the 5 towns, including Raymond, to give us an anchor in the funding. We need the contribution of $9,600 from each town. We very much appreciate your consideration in this regard, and we remain hopeful that this very tough committee will be able to support us in this endeavor. Thank you. Are there any questions, by the way?
I just have, yes, do you have any idea on a weekly basis, just a rough idea of how many people from Raymond use this service?
We don't really have, I can make a guess, but we really are not tracking the number of individuals. We are tracking the trips. And we know in this past calendar year, there were 557 trips originating from Raymond. And how many individuals are using this? It's hard to say. It's not a big number. I know a few people that are riding almost every day into Portland where they have their business activities.
If it's not a big number, what, is it 3, is it 5?
Per week, it could be that. Yes, it could be in that category.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
There's a representative of Raymond Waterways, and I also have a letter from the Raymond Casco Historical Society.
Ingo is going to talk on the Raymond
Yeah, I'd like
Casco.
to ask a question on
Yeah.
the bus.
Yeah.
We got numbers today.
Yes.
About the ridership. My math calculation on the Raymond ridership is Raymond is subsidizing that ride by $9 per trip. Is that about right?
Yeah, it could be that. And it seems high, but we're seeding this process.
And you're still charging $3 a trip, is that right?
$3 to the public, $2 for seniors. We're free of charge for children.
So it's potentially $10 a trip we're paying for.
So, okay.
Yeah, because it's about $12 a trip. When looking at the numbers we got today. So, okay.
Well, if you break it, that 350 is that a round trip price, or that's the one way?
That's one way.
Then it's about $8.30.
Right.
Yeah.
Last year, wasn't it 5,000 that we donated towards this bus?
That's correct.
And now they want 9,656 this year.
That's
What-
true.
What is the increase from?
Well, a year ago, we asked for $9,600 also. And we're hoping that all of the towns, all 5 towns, including Raymond, are able to make that provision.
That's true. Last year, something, I don't know what exactly happened, but John Rand made the presentation, I guess, or made the request, and so somehow it came through as $5,000 from the Raymond Conservation Commission, and it was so the request was the 96 whatever, and So that's not a change, it's just there's something happened in the way it got presented.
No, actually,
No, there was a lot of hesitancy.
if memory serves me, it started off at that, then there was some back and forth. And
Oh, I thought he asked for the 5,000, and
No,
then we tried to adjust it up later.
The original asked for that, then there was some back and forth when we asked for some budgetary information and whatnot, and there was some massaging that there was gonna be some other grants and things like that, and then, then what came down was the 5,000.
The total budget is 109,000, the total operating budget. And then there's approximately $42,000 in in-kind support beyond that.
So it's 9,000, you asked for 9,656 last year, but we only gave them 5,000.
That's correct.
And now you've added another town. You didn't do Bridgeton at the time, right? Or you
That's
did?
correct.
They were planning Bridgeton at the time.
Bridgeton was in your plans for last year.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Other questions on the budget?
Yeah, a lot of money.
Bingo, do you want to talk on the Historical Society?
Thank you, sir. I should start down here, Brian.
Good evening. My name is Ingo Hartig. I'm a resident of Raymond, Maine, and I'm representing the Raymond Casco Historical Society. And the president, Frank McDermott, asked me today to speak and ask for money. So I'm doing that right now. I'm asking for our stipend we received last year to be renewed. I bought some pictures so you guys know what I'm talking about. How many has anybody been there? Good.
Many times.
Every
Frank
So
makes me go several times this summer.
it's a labor of love.
Yeah. It is fun, though.
Yeah.
Great car collection.
Yes, I don't
That's
have
part of the Casco Raymond historical heritage, but it's interesting.
Yeah.
Brian, you had a couple questions on the,
Yeah. Ingo, you done?
No, I'm done.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
I'm done.
I had asked Frank on a couple of questions that might be helpful for the group. They were basically questions I think that we ask of most group, which is kind of like how many people and how big and the like. And so I'd asked how many members there were, and Frank had responded, we have less than 20 members. Since we only have one member under 70, we check the local obits on a daily basis to track our membership. That's Frank. Dues are $15 for a single, $20 for a family, $5 are the dues. $5 of those dues are placed in the endowment fund. The rest is used for expenses. We have about 10 members that cover the days that we're open, which are Saturdays and Sundays during the summer. We need 3 members to cover the museum barn and car barn. We don't have, I was asking how many people attend. He said most of our visitors are from out of the area or summer residents. How many of the committee members have visited us? Hands, please. Our summer program attracts 20 to 25 people, mostly summer people and members. I would guess that we get no more than $100 in donations at the door. Our annual budget is around $5,500. The majority of the money is spent on insurance, upkeep, and lights. The bulk of the operating budget is from the towns of Raymond and Casco. The rest is from dues, donations at the door, and fundraising. The endowment has just north of $35,000 in it. We hope to continue to build it to a point where we are self-supporting. So I thought that would be helpful for people to know. It's kind of, thanks.
Thank you.
Any questions on the historical?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
What is the dollar amount you're asking for, Mr. Hardy?
$1,800.
Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you say we had someone from the waterways?
Yep, Bob.
Hi, I'm Bob Chapin from Raymond Waterways, and I also have with us here our treasurer, Neil Jensen. And you've been given a paper a little bit, and I think that's the background in there, but I think given the lateness of the hour, we'll focus on why the increase, or why do you need $2,500 more? Historically, the town has funded us at various levels. The last few years, it's been 17.5. So why the additional money? And I would just say that, as general background, we've had a couple of good years. Mother Nature's been very kind to us in terms of the milfoil growth in various places, and it's allowed us to get a handle on places like Turtle Cove and a couple other places, and then move on to some of our other objectives. When we submitted this request, we were basing the increase on our participation in some cooperative work that was going to be done with, at that time, it was the Sebago Lakes Milfoil Initiative. They made, I think, a separate appeal to you, or maybe they didn't, because we had about 3 false starts before they came in to make their pitch. They got quite a bit of money from the state to do that, and long story, but the upshot of that was LEA, Lakes Environmental, that had a dash boat, actually bailed them out toward the end of the season and made some control efforts in the marinas on Fry Island and also over in the basin here at Pickerel Cove on the Raymond side. And what it did is kind of cement the relationship now with Raymond Waterways and LEA. We didn't have a bad relationship, but we never worked cooperatively. So now we were talking about doing that. We met in August last year. We had another discussion here within the last week. And I have sent a letter off to Peter Lowell, who's the executive director up there, and it looks like we're going to cooperate. And when I say cooperate, what I'm talking about doing is that they would provide their dash boat to us with a crew, and we would hit a place real hard, and then hopefully get that area to what we call a maintenance status, where we've gotten most of the weeds out, but then we come back afterward, and that's a lot easier task than the initial cleaning is. We have not been able to get to the canals the way we'd like to. They're kind of dead-end waterways in that, the water comes in and it goes up against a bulkhead and then it goes back out the other way. Well, the weeds really like that, and it's really tough to get in there once docks and boats get in place to do anything with our boats. So we're hoping to hit that early on in the season with the help of LEA, and then rather than them charging us for that, we would then send our crews to an area outside the geographic confines of Raymond for a comparable amount of time. So if they gave us 3 days of diving, we would give them 3 days at one of their other targets. Last Friday, we attended the statewide Milfoil Summit up in Lewiston, and the DEP crowd dropped kind of a bombshell on us. They have some restrictions. We're just now sorting out exactly what they are, but they may put us out of business in the short term for diving, because they are asserting that now, even though our divers are in typically 8 to 12 feet of water, that we now must comply with commercial dive standards, as if we were going to go down and weld some oil rig somewhere. So the upshot of that is now they are requiring a whole series of certifications and documentations on diving. And we have yet to see their briefing. We saw it up on the screen up there. We've just received it electronically tonight, so we're going to sit down and figure out, are there some workarounds here that small organizations like ours can live with, and maybe come up with a compromise. Nobody wants to get anybody hurt or injured doing this dive thing, and we think we do it pretty safely, but these requirements are really over the top, and we think it's a big federal overreach. The DEP brought an OSHA guy from New Hampshire, an OSHA guy from Maine, and a federal OSHA guy in to make the presentation. And they anticipated that there'd be just a lot of consternation and frustration by the various lake associations. We have about 25 of these associations throughout the state that do the same kind of work that we do, some using different techniques. But the bottom line was, now we've got to go back and get documented first aid training. It's almost like you're going to be an EMT or something like that, the kind of requirements that they have if you're going to do commercial diving, which incidentally, they give relief to fire departments and police departments that also do diving. They don't have to meet those standards, but we do, our little mom and pop operation. But so once we sort that out, we know for sure we're going to have to buy equipment, because one of the things that they do not permit are the hookahs, which is how we get air to our divers. So we have to go back and figure out, okay, what are we going to do? Do we move the hookah up on the boat? Do we get a compressor on the boat and run the air off of that? Do we convert everybody over to scuba and all the certifications that requires? So we're getting kind of wrapped around the axle, but we'll figure out an approach, and then we'll have to get back to DEP and tell them how we plan to do it down here. All of that comes with time delays, it comes with training, it comes with additional expense. So that's, I think, is where our $2,500 is going to end up going. We also want to increase our educational efforts this week. We've been working with the day camps that are around the various lakes and with the schools for as long as they're in session on our outreach and good waterway stewardship, and that's been pretty successful. Some of you may know Jeff Stern. He put together a curriculum for us last year, and we'll be shopping that around the various places where we can do it. We've also been doing a lot of work in the upper Jordan River, and if you go up the far end there where it comes right out at Panther Pond, that's area that you can stand around in a wetsuit and do the picking that you need to. But the further you move down Jordan River, the deeper the water gets, and now we're at the point where a single diver standing there can't do it. So we have to bring some sort of a boat up there in order to do that work. It may not be our big dash boats, which are basically 24-foot pontoon boats, but it has to be something other than wading along in there. So we've got that to deal with as well. We haven't, you heard a little bit earlier today in a couple of the organizations talking about pay raises. We haven't had a pay raise in a long time. We basically hire college kids, and we've been able to get away doing that fairly cheaply, to be honest. But with all the talk about minimum wage and whatnot, the kids are more sensitized to what they're getting paid. So we've been paying about $10 an hour, and we think we're going to have to go up on that in order to get these, particularly if we insist that they have certain qualifications like dive qualifications. If they go out and take a dive course, that's going to cost them about $300 or $400 to take a open water dive certification course, and they're going to want more than $10 an hour to pay for that. We also, amongst ourselves, working with the board, have figured out that we're a little underinsured in terms of general liability insurance goes, for like a director and operators kind of policy for the organization. We have plenty of marine insurance, and we do the MEMIC, and we do the actual marine insurance, but we don't have anything to protect the liability of the board members. So in our increased sensitivity to liability issues, we may be looking at additional expense there for policy. So that's kind of basically where the money is going to go. There's also probably a question out there, well, what about the plan to go into the Bayview canals? What is it that the Bayview people are going to be doing differently this year? Typically, when we send out our funding appeals, we broadcast that out to actually a declining number. It used to be about maybe between 1,500 and 1,600 people. This year, it's just a little under 600 people. But in our appeal, we have a separate appeal letter that's going right to the Bayview Canal folks. So anybody that's a property holder out there on Bayview will get this special letter, and it points out the fact that we're going to be doing some extra work. It's kind of a twofold thing. We're telling them that we're going to be doing a lot of work in their area, so when they see our boats and our people out there, they won't say, hey, what the heck's going on here? So the idea is to put them on notice that we're going to be working in their area. It should be good news to them, but it's not always. And then the second thing is we ask them to dig a little deeper in their pockets and send us a little bit more money. I don't mean to say that we don't get money from them. We have a good donor out there that gives us $2,500 a year, which is great. So they are doing something. It's just that there are, like any place, there are some folks out there that aren't doing anything. So the idea is to kind of get their attention and say, hey, these guys are in here doing this for us. We need to kind of put something in the plate for them. So that's kind of what we expect out of the Bayview Canal area. So at that point, I'll take any questions anybody might have.
Brian?
Bob, two questions. On the dive requirements, I'm sure this is something that's already been thought of, but have you talked to Maine DEP to see if they could act as some type of negotiator or something? Do they?
Brian, I'll tell you, it was a big disappointment. I mean, this conference is organized by Maine DEP.
Oh, okay, there you go.
They were hosting it. Peter Lowell was emceeing it, but it's a DEP conference, and they have known about this for some time. I should tell you, they've known at least 6 months that this was coming. And when we asked, I said, how come suddenly we have all these requirements that just been discovered? The answer that came back to us was that these requirements have been there since 1971. Oh. So I'm thinking, well, holy mackerel, somebody just discovered this.
Okay.
I don't know whether they had an incident somewhere and it brought this to light or what the deal is. It makes little difference to us. They have made now, and I expect it will be me, I'll have to sign off on our application for plant control funds certifying that our divers are all certified and we're consistent with the rest of the commercial dive requirements.
Second question was, I was wondering if you could go up to 30,000 feet for a second and just give us a picture of invasive species in general. Are we, and as it relates to Raymond, are we at where we were 5 years ago, better off, worse off?
Yeah, I would just say that we are better off than we were, and I don't mean to take all the credit for that. We had some environmental or climatic conditions 2 years ago that really helped us. And one of the things is Sebago Lake was drawn down to its lowest level, went down to 261, which, thank you, Sappy, for doing that. The other thing is we had a particularly cold winter that year, and these plants don't tolerate that very well. So any plants that were in shallow or exposed by the low water levels died. So even a place like Turtle Cove, which was really infested when we started this 5 years ago, we caught a break, and that quite a bit of that is gone now. Sir.
Did you have a question?
No.
Awesome.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Bob.
Hi.
Last year you came to us with the proposal of adding a second dash boat to the fleet. How successful were you in manning that second boat, or did you have 2 boats in the water at all times?
We do have 2 boats. We were successful in bringing the boat up online. And the good news is that's a newer boat, and it was a donated boat to us, and it was a newer boat and a smaller engine. That's the good news. The bad news is the engine, from a mechanical point of view, wasn't any better. So we spent some money with Richardson's and Port Harbor and a few other places getting that boat online. The boat was online. We didn't staff up and put a crew on it, but what we did is we had 2 different boats. Rather than make a long transit from Port Harbor to Turtle Cove, we put a boat in Turtle Cove, and the popular name, the Potvins, Gary and Diane allowed us to moor the boat at their dock, and so we left it there, and we would cross-deck our crews from one to the other. The reality is when you work underwater pulling weeds, it doesn't take a whole lot of time before it's very murky down there and you can't see much. So we could go over there and pull for a day and then dispose of the weeds appropriately. And again, the Potvins helped very much with that by composting some of that, and Gary using his tractor. And then we would go somewhere else where the water was clear and we could work that way, and we would just kind of hopscotch them between the 2 boats.
That notification that you were talking about to the Bayview people, I think is very important.
Went out this morning.
I did work on a diver-assisted harvester, and got challenged by residents on the shoreline. Why are you making my water all murky? I think a good explanation of what to expect in your efforts would be much appreciated.
Well, we certainly can do more in terms of public announcements, using some of the open press and a few other places to announce that that's going to happen. But we didn't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, not knowing what these dive requirements are going to do to us. So once we get a good handle on that and we have a plan, and of course, every year we're basically hiring new crew, whether it's CBI, the courtesy boat inspector, or Dash. We'll get 2 or 3 folks to come back that already know what they're doing, but for the most part, it's entry-level employment for a lot of kids. And we have a couple of training sessions to get them up to speed. And anytime you're dealing around water where you got props and you got entanglement issues and things like that, you want to make sure that they know what they're doing. So as I said, we'll have a pretty good ramped-up training program before we get too far down that road. Sir.
Yes. I am one of your invasive plant patrollers for Crescent Lake.
Good for you.
And just want to say for this group, it's probably a great preventive measure, because I went to that meeting last year, and I have to say it's kind of scary when you realize that when milfoil actually attacks some of our properties, in some cases in the northern part, property values have gone down as much as 40%, which means less property taxes, less income, etc. So the fact that the work that you do across the board from the lake side, at least from my side, I think is great.
Thank you for that.
You have a lot of volunteers out there that said, wait a minute, and they ask me, what are you doing? What are you doing? And they look at my scope and all that kind of stuff. Oh, okay, good, keep going. But the bottom line is it's something that we need to monitor very closely, and we're very fortunate, Brian, in our area that we do have some milfoil, but it's being controlled. And I know from the Crescent Lake Water Association, we're like, okay, are we clear this year again?
You guys have milfoil in Crescent?
We have no milfoil.
Oh, okay.
And that's the way we want to keep it. So we do.
I'm in Panther, so
inspections and all that stuff. Anyway, bottom line is it's a preventive thing, I think, from the town side for tax appraisal purposes. If property values waterfront property values went way down because it's all infested. And if you've ever seen some of this stuff, and It's bad.
It's like a map.
It
No,
is.
you don't. I mean, it's really just like, wow, who would buy a house there? So.
Yeah, the example that we're using, I mean, a current one anyway, is Arrowhead Lake, and there
Yes,
was
that's the one that I
had a
got.
tremendous infestation, and anywhere from 10 to 40%, depending on when you sold your house,
Yeah.
is what the degradation was considered by the real estate community, not us, but by actual home sales. So anyway.
No other questions on that?
Did we also give money to LEA last year? I think they asked for
No,
No, we
gave it to the
the,
Sebago Water Safety Watch Group.
Okay.
And I don't know, maybe it's been folded into what you're doing now. It sounds like there's some Sebago work going on, and that's what they were doing. And I didn't reach out, I didn't go, I went to their meetings, I was helpful, made suggestions, recommendations with respect to work in Raymond and other places with the other town managers. I did not get a request, so I didn't go chasing for a request or looking for one. I haven't heard from Diane, I don't know if you have.
My understanding of the current state of affairs is that the Sebago Lake Milfoil Cooperative Alliance, which was the group that she was pushing, is defunct.
Okay.
It's no more. That's not to say that the concept wasn't a good idea. I think the towns around Sebago should have some sort of forum where they get together and talk about how they're going to handle this problem. The problem on Sebago is, A, it's so big that people don't even know their neighbors in the same cove, let alone, the guy across the lake. The other issue is where the milfoil is. If you look at we have a lake map chart and it has measles spots all over it where the milfoil is. It's so disparate that it's hard for somebody that lives over here to see, really I should be spending my money over there.
But I think, although it's defunct, we did have a good dialogue. There was work completed, there was value received.
Yes.
But I didn't feel it was my place to go out and solicit. So I didn't. And I didn't before. I mean, I was being responsive to something that was coming to me, and with the request from a resident to help get this thing organized, which I did.
And that is precisely the approach that RWPA took to it. We're mindful of the fact that you guys are, somebody was talking about 50-50 split. You are about anywhere, depending upon how good our fundraising is in a given year, you're about 24 to 27% of our funding. The rest we get either from direct solicitations or grants that we apply for. So we didn't think that we could protect the interests of our donor base by volunteering our boat to go willy-nilly somewhere and do something, on Sebago. So we deferred as an organization in jumping in there. I mean, it was crying out for some help, but we thought this is dangerous for us to be doing that, so we did not do it. On the other hand, this barter system that I was talking about earlier is how we can see how to protect the interests of Raymond taxpayers and landowners while at the same time extending our capability outside the area, as long as we get comparable exchange in between. I don't envision us spending any money or transferring any money between LEA and RWPA. I think we'll just give each other some time on our boats and let it go at that.
Rolf, can I make one more comment? Yeah. Joe, you're going to help me with this number, I hope. Our grand list monies off of waterfront are 50-something%? 50?
Yeah, it's like 58%.
58%. So for those who don't live on a lake, and many people don't, I think it's important for people to understand, Brian, to the point you were making, that regardless of whether there's currently milfoil or not, it is an issue when you start thinking about $1 billion valuation, of which 58%, I'm not going to do the math on that, but I probably could. Thank you very much. Actually, but Joe was going to get
I would have taken that.
I was going to get tougher because I was going to say 40% of that, but so anyway, you could still do it, I know you can. It's a big number, that's the point. And the other thing I think is important is that these boats are essentially, most of the lakes, as I understand it, in Raymond, with the exception of Sebago, because it's so large, have some type of invasive plant patrolling like you're doing. And so there is an early warning detection system that's been done. This is all volunteer. And the dash boats provide the ability to quickly respond should there be something that came up, for example, on Crescent Lake. We actually have the equipment and the available and the expertise to be able to meet those very quickly so that something doesn't get out of hand and we don't have that situation where you're having a real mess. So, thanks.
That's true.
Any questions on the waterway?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Other questions on items in the TIF? At this point, are there any comments from the public that they would like to give? Seeing none. Next meeting will be next Monday, 6:30. Meeting is adjourned.